Chapter 45. It all started when Qin Xingyan returned to the Bailu Temple. At that time, because of Jiang Jin's problem with the spirit vein, the girl had no choice but to return to her sect and ask her master for a solution. Unfortunately, her master was also helpless and could only pin his hopes on the mountainous collection of Taoist books in the Bailu Temple. This shouldn't have been a problem. After all, the White Deer Monastery had an elder who was in charge of managing the Taoist scriptures. Even if the elder didn't know how to solve the problem of the spirit vein, he would at least know which corner of the vast library contained the relevant scriptures. If Qin Xingyan was left to her own devices, it would be too late for her to search for the scriptures. But before the elder found the books related to the spirit vein, he noticed that the gift brought back by Qin Xingyan, the tooth of the Qiong Qi, was extraordinary. Although he was not sure what kind of creature this thing came from, the condensed spiritual energy on it could not be faked. Even the best spiritual stone in the sect could not compare to 1/10 of this tooth. It should be noted that the Bailu Temple was one of the better Taoist sects in modern times. The best spiritual stone they had was the leftover material of the jade annulus of He clan, which was used to carve the jade seal. Compared to other non-renewable resources like spiritual stones, which would turn into ashes after using up all their spiritual energy, this piece of the jade annulus of He clan had the ability to absorb spiritual energy from the void and store it. It could be said that as long as the spiritual energy was not overdrawn, this thing could be used as an inexhaustible source of spiritual energy. Both the righteous and the evil sects coveted this piece of the jade annulus of He clan in the Bailu Temple. In this era where spiritual energy was scarce, this kind of thing was even more important. But compared to the tooth brought back by Qin Xingyan, it was a little weak. Let's put it this way. Even if we don't do anything, we just have to find a way to destroy the tooth and release the spiritual energy inside. It's enough to turn Crimson Heaven's mountain into a paradise filled with spiritual energy. At the very least, the White Deer Monastery won't have to worry about spiritual energy for the next 300 years. This matter, which concerned the fate of the sect, naturally caused the upper echelons of the White Deer Monastery to be shaken. Almost all the old monsters in the sect who could still move jumped out, all for the sake of preventing the other sects from coveting this supreme treasure before the White Deer Monastery settled down. In this situation, Qin Xingyan was once again pushed to the heart of the storm. The unprepared girl had to deal with countless compliments and flattery all day long. She couldn't help but complain to one of the initiators, "Hey, I thought you said you were just a little monster." In the end, the Bailu Temple hollowed out half of Crimson Cloud Mountain and hid the Qiong Qi's tooth in the belly of the mountain. They also artificially excavated a spiritual vein, making the Bailu Temple located at the top of the mountain one of the few paradises in this era. In addition, the knowledgeable elder had long forgotten about the problem of Jiang Jin's spiritual vein at the top of Mount Penglai. He only cared about scraping some powder from the tooth and refining it with some spiritual herbs in the sect's collection into a cauldron of elixirs. The first person to benefit from the elixir was naturally the biggest contributor, Qin Xingyan. According to her teacher, this cauldron of elixirs was very successful. When she opened the cauldron to take out the elixir, there was even a flash of purple lightning in the sky. It was almost a tribulation thunder. If Qin Xingyan could refine the elixir, she might be able to break through the shackles and become the first person of the younger generation to set foot on the path of Jin Dan. Qin Xingyan was very moved. She ate an elixir and ran to the confinement room to cultivate. Then she almost knelt down. The power of Qiongqi was obviously more violent than what a certain knowledgeable elder had estimated. Although the effect of the pill was not bad, the fierce spiritual energy almost burst the young girl's meridians, causing her to lose all her cultivation. Parting line, that's pretty much what happened. Qin Xingyan, who was sitting on the ruins, explained to Su Shenxing what had happened during this period of time. Although it's my fault for going into seclusion without informing you, don't you think you've gone too far? As she spoke, she looked in the direction of the top of the mountain. The majestic Taoist palace that could be seen from the back of the mountain had disappeared. Even now, there was a column of smoke rising in spirals, but couldn't you have called me or something to tell me that you were safe? Su Shenxing was tongue-tied. After a long while, she stammered and asked back. There's no signal on the mountain. Her words were reasonable and convincing. Su Shenxing suddenly felt that she had lost. No, it's not my fault. It's the telecommunications. It's all the telecommunications' fault. I used a mobile phone. Senior, this kind of Chinibu who refuses to admit her mistakes is really ugly. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Well, very good. Emily, who was next to them, looked at the small drama between the two while digging out the bowl of rice that was somehow intact from the ruins. He sat on the rafters that were inserted diagonally into the ground and chewed on the dried radish inside. He was a complete mood destroyer. If the people in your sect are really innocent, then I think we should hurry to your main hall. Well, I mean the place where the main hall used to be. Remind your fellow sect members who are grieving over the passing of spring and autumn that their Dao palaces are going to fall soon. Fall? Qin Xingyan asked in confusion. Aha! Just now when I asked a group of old men for directions, physics, because the resistance was too strong, I was so angry that I directly slapped those old men and the Taoist palace directly into the stratosphere. I think it's about to fall down now. Su Shenxing scratched his face and said with a laugh. This is not something that can be fooled by ahaha at all. Qin Xingyan hurriedly waved his hand and wanted to fly on his sword, but he forgot that his meridians were damaged. His vision turned black and he almost died. Su Shenxing hurriedly grabbed her and said, "Don't panic, hold on tight." After saying that, he turned to Emily who had finished eating the dried radish and was trying to conquer the dried vegetables and said, "Emily, help me locate the original location of the Taoist palace, we'll teleport, physics, there." By the way, the so-called teleport, physics, referred to cutting open space and then directly running from the space-time fault to another place in the world. However, Su Shenxing's only permanent location was Sakura Apartments, which had Home's protection. As for the other places, he could only rely on Jasmine's help. In the absence of Jasmine, he could only rely on luck. He had even accidentally run into outer space once. It was also because of that accident that he discovered that he could actually survive in space after opening the cloud scale. Moreover, teleport, physics, also had a certain degree of influence on the world itself. For the sake of the stability of this world, it could not be used frequently. But now was an emergency, so it should be fine, right? I want dried fish, or I won't do it. Emily spat out the strange-tasting dried vegetables in his mouth and took the opportunity to threaten Su Shenxing. Are you a cat? I want dried fish, or I won't do it, meow. Have some integrity, Lord Demon King. Chapter 46. Thanks to Su Shenxing and Emily's efforts, the Bailu Temple was finally stopped from crashing into Mount Danxia from the stratosphere. Miraculously, no one in the temple was injured or killed. This was truly a result worthy of celebration. Why do you look like you've succeeded? Weren't you the one who smashed the Taoist palace into the sky? Then, Qin Xingyan, who had been watching the whole process, ridiculed her. I've already apologized. What's the use of hell if apologizing is useful? Does that thing really exist? Su Shenxing was shocked. I don't know. The girl answered without hesitation. Hey, the cultivator over there. Qin Xingyan was able to chat and laugh with the super-strong cultivator who had destroyed the Bailu Temple with his own strength. Emily had been there all this time. He even suppressed the other party in terms of aura. The survivors of the Bailu Temple, well, that wasn't the right word. When they first attacked, Su Shenxing deliberately didn't injure them severely. Except for the group of old men and women who were sent to the sky, and then brought back, the Bailu Temple disciples only suffered scratches at most. In short, the disciples of the Bailu temple all looked at their senior sister with admiration. So, how do you want me to compensate you? Su Shenxing sat on the ground like a hoodlum. Let me say this first, I don't have money. You don't have to emphasize that you don't have money. Qin Xingyan, who had lived in Sakura apartments, naturally knew how poor Su Shenxing was. Our Bailu temple's Taoist palace is almost destroyed. I hope you can help us when we rebuild it. Humph, even if I'm poor, I won't be a brick mover. Delivery and brick mover were about the same level, 200 yuan per day. I'll leave my 50 kilograms here and let you order me around. Qin Xingyan was speechless as he looked at Su Shenxing, who had a righteous look on his face as he sucked up to Su Shenxing. He suddenly felt that he might have understood where Mo Li learned his shamelessness from. Thus, the large-scale reconstruction of the Bailu temple began. Master. At noon one day, a disciple of the Bailu temple came to Su Shenxing, who was having lunch, trembling with fear. His forehead was covered in cold sweat, and he looked very nervous. Master wants you to go to the side hall. Su Shenxing smiled helplessly. Okay, I got it. Thus, the disciple fled as if he had been granted amnesty. Su Shenxing poked the foot of Mo Li, who was lying on the tree and basking in the sun. Are you going? I'm not going. I want to go home. A world without internet. I'll just destroy it. Although he muttered like this, Mo Li didn't seem to intend to leave Su Shenxing behind and go back to Ying apartment first. Su Shenxing shrugged and went to the side hall of the Bailu temple alone. This was the only building that escaped disaster because it was far from the main hall. Yo, what's the matter? Su Shenxing entered the main hall and saw a group of people sitting there, as if they were discussing something. There's something I want to ask you for help with. The hale and hearty old man sitting in the main seat was the current head of the Bailu temple. His strength was quite good. With the support of the Bailu temple's ley line, he was able to block Su Shenxing for nearly 30 seconds. This was the main reason why Su Shenxing was so impatient that he directly smashed the house into the sky. In addition, although Su Shenxing claimed to be in his 20s, the old man insisted that he must be a reclusive senior. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so arrogant. So the honorifics made Su Shenxing's stomach ache a little. Actually, Crimson Heaven Mountain has been targeted by several developers recently. They want to turn it into a tourist attraction. Of course, through the negotiations of our Bailu temple's lay disciples, they have agreed that this kind of development will only stop halfway up the mountain, and they won't touch the back of the mountain. It's not difficult for you to make one or two ordinary people back off, right? Su Shenxing asked curiously. Because they agreed to give the Bailu temple dividends and bear all the costs of rebuilding and maintaining the Bailu temple. The old man said with a wry smile, in this era, it's hard to do anything without money. It's the same for us reclusive people. Of course, those people don't know the truth. They only think that our Bailu temple is an ordinary Taoist temple with more connections. Even an ancient reclusive cultivation sect couldn't withstand the tide of the market economy. After all, almost no one in this era could cultivate to the level of Anidia, so even if they could save on other things, they couldn't save on food. Spirit herbs were planted everywhere in the Bailu temple. After all, the spirit energy here was thicker. In terms of price-performance ratio, spirit herbs that were priceless were much better than cabbages. The mountain range near Crimson Heaven Mountain had also become a popular tourist destination because of Jiujiang Nature Park. They couldn't send disciples to hunt, and it would be awkward if they hunted some rare and protected animals. For cultivators, wealth, companionship, methods, and land were necessary. Since wealth was the first priority, there was naturally a reason for it. Thinking about it, it wasn't hard to understand why the Bailu temple would agree to the other party's request. So what do you want me to do? Thinking of this, Su Shenxing couldn't help but ask with some confusion, are you going to threaten those developers and make them pay more? No, that's not it. Are you going to make a big fuss and make it difficult for them to deal with, so that they'll beg the Bailu Temple for protection? I'm good at that, no problem. No way, or rather, do you have such experience? Qin Xingyan couldn't help but ridicule. Are you going to kidnap their families? Even for me, that's a bit. Su Shenxing looked distressed. What exactly do you think our Bailu Temple is like in your head? An illegal religious group that gathers deep in the mountains? As soon as he finished speaking, Su Shenxing reached out and clamped Qin Xingyan's trembling flying sword between his fingers. Then, under the girl's devouring gaze, he laughed and said, I'm kidding, just kidding. But what exactly do you want? I hope you can persuade the monsters of Crimson Heaven's mountain to move to the back of our mountain. As if he didn't see the quarrel between Su Shenxing and Qin Xingyan, the old man said calmly, after all, commercial development will definitely destroy their habitat. Instead of letting them fight with humans and make trouble, it's better to let them settle down in the back of our Bailu Temple. We'll give them a land vein to settle down. Forgive me for being blunt, but generally speaking, aren't monsters and cultivators at odds with each other? Su Shenxing raised his hand and asked like a primary school student. However, he was still clamping the powerful flying sword red sleeve between his fingers, so he looked a bit strange. The old man was silent for a long time before he finally heaved a long sigh. His originally stooped figure looked even more dejected. We're all abandoned children of this era. If we can help, we should help. Otherwise, our descendants will only know about the existence of monsters in myths and legends. Chapter 47. But then again, didn't we agree that I have to help rebuild the Bailu Temple's Taoist palace? Don't mess around. You can't do anything at the construction site other than moving bricks and being a hindrance. Qin Xingyan's words left Su Shenxing speechless. Auravia, the world that Su Shenxing once transmigrated to, has earth elemental magic, which is basically a cheat in civil engineering. However, even though Su Shenxing has all of Jasmine's magic in his body, and at the same time, because of the sacred sword's transformation, he has over 700,000 magic meridians in his body. An average mage only has a 2-digit number of magic meridians. He doesn't have any ability to cast magic. If it wasn't for the fact that he obtained the cloud scale by chance and gained the ability to protect people or objects, he could only be a pure physical warrior. Xingyan, you should go with him. The old man at the head of the table said. Master? Qin Xingyan blinked his eyes in confusion. Don't you have some friendship with some demons? You can use it this time. Master, you know about it, the girl stuck out her tongue. Because of Qing Meng, she was different from the other disciples of the Bailu Temple. She had a natural fondness for demons. Although Qing Meng was not a demon, but a spiritual beast, it was also because of this that she had some friendship with some of the demons at the foot of the mountain. Although she did not deliberately hide it, the Bailu Temple was still one of the leaders of the righteous faction. As the head disciple, she did not need to publicize this kind of situation, which was unclear whether it was good or bad. She thought that not many people knew about it, but she did not expect her master to have seen everything. After a moment of hesitation, she gladly accepted the order and left the side hall with Su Shenxing. They first took a detour and returned to the construction site, where they found Emily on a large banyan tree. Emily, who was curled up and sleeping in the canopy, had no interest in persuading people to move. It seemed that he did not want to get involved in this matter. Maybe they have Wi-Fi at home. Then, Su Shenxing used one sentence to stimulate the girl's enthusiasm. Qin Xingyan rolled his eyes at Su Shenxing's words behind his back. How could a demon who lived in the middle of nowhere have Wi-Fi at home? The three of them walked along the path until they were halfway up the mountain. Qin Xingyan took out an almond-yellow talisman from her bag. She didn't take out a lighter, but with a gentle shake of her hand, the talisman ignited and turned into a wisp of smoke before disappearing. A moment later, a young girl wearing a costume that resembled an ancient drama came out of the thicket. Sister Xingyan, when did you come back? Seeing Qin Xingyan standing on the mountain path, the girl with her hair tied up in a bun smiled and greeted her. Then, she caught a glimpse of Su Shenxing and Mo Li beside Su Shenxing. She could not help but turn pale with fright. I haven't seen you for such a short time, but you're not only married, you even have a child. Qin Xingyan's face turned red when she heard this. She pulled the girl's hand and said awkwardly, Sister Wan Er, don't talk nonsense. This is Senior Su, who I met during my training. The other is Senior Su's sister, Mo Li. After that, she introduced the woman in the ancient costume to Su Shenxing. This is Sister Wan Er, my good friend. Hello, hello. Su Shenxing, who thought he knew the ways of the world, quickly went up to greet her. Ha! The girl grinned at Su Shenxing, making the latter confused for a long time, not knowing what she meant. Jasmine, on the other hand, was sizing him up from the side. She was still muttering to herself, if you twist off the head, the rest can be eaten, or something like that. Because he felt that it was a little strange, Su Shenxing decided to pretend that he didn't hear anything. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Tell me what's going on today. You usually don't bear to use the bell-tolling talisman to find me. Sister Wan Er was a squirrel spirit in Crimson Heaven Mountain. Although she was only a little over 100 years old, she might not be very good in terms of magic, but because of the advantage of her race, all squirrels had become her eyes and ears. She was aware of everything that happened in the mountains, so she was more or less a know-it-all. Sister Wan Er, do you know that the mortals are going to develop Crimson Heaven Mountain into a scenic spot? Qin Xingyan asked directly. Of course I know. You didn't know because you went out for training. Now the monsters on the mountain are going crazy because of this. Sister Wan Er sighed. Today is the Diliu festival. Now the Huang family and the Chai family are taking the lead in planning to hold a banquet in Master Hong Ye's house. They hope that the monsters on the mountain can go and set the rules to decide whether to fight or make peace with the humans. The Diliu festival? Su Shenxing asked curiously. It was the first time that he heard of this festival. It's a festival unique to us monsters. Every 60 years, the essence of the moon will fall from the sky like rain. That is the legendary Diliu syrup. It is shaped like countless olives, with thousands of golden threads, and hangs down on the world. Plants and trees can become monsters when they receive the essence of the Diliu syrup. To us monsters, it is the best tonic. At the same time, it is an important time to increase the strength of our kind. Therefore, although there is no Diliu syrup in other years, we still hold a banquet to thank God. Sister Wan Er explained. Qin Xingyan didn't have any special reaction to this. It seemed that he had already heard about it. Sister Wan Er, are you going to the monster banquet too? Qin Xingyan asked. Of course. How can I miss such an important event? Sister Wan Er said matter-of-factly. But aren't you being hunted down by many monsters because you know a lot of secrets? The Huang family and the Chai family have said that this banquet has to put aside the grudges between the monsters and only discuss human affairs. Sister Wan Er looked very confident, and this banquet is held in Master Hong Ye's house. If someone really breaks the rules, the respected master won't sit by and do nothing. Can you take us with you? Since they wanted to persuade the monsters to move, talking to them one by one was undoubtedly the stupidest and most time-consuming way. If they could persuade them all at once during the monster banquet, that would be the best way. Sister Xingyan, I trust your character. It's not impossible. Sister Wan Er looked at Su Shenxing and realized that Su Shenxing and Mo Li didn't have any spiritual aura. They were just ordinary people, so she was relieved. How could two ordinary people turn the world upside down in front of a group of monsters? Really? Thank you so much, Sister Wan Er. Qin Xingyan was overjoyed. Don't thank me too early. Although I'll help you hide your human scent, you still have to keep a low profile. If other monsters, especially the Huang family and the Chai family, find out your true identities, even I won't be able to protect you. Do you understand? Sister Wan warned them seriously. No problem. Qin Xingyan subconsciously looked at Su Shenxing. He felt that with this human-shaped nuclear warhead around, the monsters wouldn't be able to do anything. Chapter 48. The monster feast of the Emperor Flow Festival would begin at night. Sister Wan also needed to prepare some things, so the three of them agreed to meet here in the evening. Although Su Shenxing and the others did not have anything to prepare, Mo Li, who was originally uninterested, was now in high spirits. Although the Bailu temple did not forbid meat and fish, it was still a Taoist temple. Naturally, the Taoists who cultivated their moral character would not eat fish and meat every meal. Mo Li was already tired of eating wild vegetables and was planning to find something else to change his taste. Finally, it was evening. Mo Li dragged Su Shenxing and Qin Xingyan back to the path. Sister Wan was already there waiting for them with a small package in her arms. Unlike before, Sister Wan was no longer in a human form. Her fluffy and huge squirrel tail peeked out from the waist of her Han costume, swaying comfortably. Her pointy squirrel ears were like cat ears, shaking from time to time. Mo Li had an impulse to pounce on her and touch her. Of course, this impulse was strangled to death by Su Shenxing, who grabbed her by the back of her collar. Here, put these on first. Sister Wan handed over 3 masks. Su Shenxing and the others took a look and found that the masks were a bit like the masks in the Peking opera, but the colorful paint on them was very strange. Just looking at it gave them a creepy feeling. These are masks of faceless monsters. Once you put them on, they can cover your human scent. Sister Wan continued to explain. Originally, I was going to look for masks of the god of covering face. It's like the god of death or the 99 gods with strange things on their faces. But those guys are more common in Fusang. It's not easy to find one in Huaxia. Su Shenxing and the others obediently followed her instructions and put the masks on their faces. As a result, Mo Li and Qin Xingyan hid their scent as usual. Only Su Shenxing's mask cracked in half. What's going on? Su Shenxing held the broken pieces of the mask and blinked innocently. Is there really a fake product like this? It looks like you are protected by some kind of power that makes you immune to all evil. This mask belongs to a monster, after all. Furthermore, the monster's aura is very strong. Of course, it would be destroyed by that kind of power. Sister Wan looked at the broken mask and frowned. Su Shenxing could only smile bitterly. Due to his sacred sword, he indeed had such a buff on him. Curses like weaken, poison, and most other negative statuses were ineffective against him. Moreover, this buff was a passive skill, so there was no way for him to turn it off. In the end, Su Shenxing could only find a piece of yellow cloth and smear some of Sister Wan's aura on it. Then, he tied it to his face and disguised himself as a yellow turbaned strongman. He sneaked into the banquet as Sister Wan's summoned creature. After that, Sister Wan led the group to a huge maple tree. Wan, the squirrel monster, pressed her hand on the bark of the tree and softly chanted a few words. Then, she passed through the bark and disappeared into the tree. Su Shenxing and the others looked at each other and imitated Wan. They reached out their hands to touch the place where Wan disappeared. However, there was nothing in the place where the trunk should have been, as if there was an invisible door. After passing through the door on the maple tree, they officially arrived at the monster's territory. The moon was high in the sky, and the monster's banquet had already begun. At first, Su Shenxing was shocked by the amazing number of monsters. Although it was only a street's worth of monsters, the current monster flow was comparable to that of the bazaar during the Qingming period in his memory. At the same time, there were stalls selling all kinds of snacks on the roadside, just like the bazaar. Occasionally, there were some small stalls selling herbs or other miscellaneous things. However, for some reason, there were no stalls selling things like ring throwing, darts, or catching goldfish for entertainment. It was a pity. However, when he thought about it, it was normal. After all, the customers here were monsters. Most of the monsters were, in a sense, little superhumans. If they really set up those kinds of entertainment stalls, the stall owner would go bankrupt in minutes. Another thing worth mentioning was, how much is this braised mushroom sauce? 5 yuan. Give me a skewer. Okay, thank you for your patronage. The currency circulating among the monsters was actually RMB. Su Shunxing had already mentally prepared himself for the possibility that they would use things like spirit stones as currency. When he expressed his doubts, Sister Wan held her stomach and laughed. Spirit stones are now more expensive than gold. Their brains must have been kicked by someone to use them to buy things like this. Perhaps the quality of the mask Sister Wan found was very good. Along the way, they passed by countless monsters, but none of them realized that Su Shunxing and the others were humans. After walking for a while, they arrived at the end of the street. At this time, Mo Li's hands were already filled with all kinds of food and toys. His mask was already tilted to one side, and his mouth was stuffed full. At the end of the street was a large, antique house. From the eaves and roof, it looked like a Buddhist building. This is Master Hong Ye's residence. When you go in, be careful. It's best to keep your heads down as much as possible. Don't make eye contact with those big monsters, understand? While leading the group into the house, Sister Wan did not forget to remind them carefully. Su Shunxing reached out and grabbed Mo Li's left hand, which was still holding a bunch of cotton candy in water balls. Using her spiritual power, he sensed the interior of the house. In the end, he found that although there were many monsters inside, all of them combined were probably not as many as the flying tiger, Qiong Qi, that he killed in Jiangjin. As soon as they entered the courtyard, many monsters looked at them. Fortunately, they only glanced at them for a moment before looking away. At this time, in the center of the courtyard, a blonde punk was confronting a shriveled, skinny old man. The brown-haired one is the current head of the Huang family, and the old man is the head of the Chai family. They are a family of weasels and a family of snakes. They are natural enemies. This time, if it weren't for the fact that humans wanted to take over Crimson Cloud's mountain, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to work together for the rest of their lives. Sister Wan led them to a corner, and while avoiding everyone's eyes, she took the time to explain to them, the man in the cultivation clothes sitting in the main seat is Master Hong Yi. He is the master of this forest and the most powerful big monster in Crimson Cloud's mountain. However, he is kind and has a high reputation among the monsters. As soon as she finished speaking, the blonde punk snorted coldly and roared at the shriveled old man with cold eyes in front of him. In short, no matter what you say, I won't move. Since a group of mere mortals dares to take over my territory, they should be prepared to suffer heavy casualties and go back with their tails between their legs. Chapter 49. Huang Lao Wu, I advise you not to incite everyone to do stupid things here, the shriveled old man sneered. Mortals are indeed nothing special, but don't forget that there are still cultivators. Those experts bought by the human imperial court are all eyeing us country monsters covetously. We just need an excuse to act. Humph, old Chai, you're an old man with half a foot in the coffin. What do you know? The punk named Huang Lao Wu stared at his old rival in disdain. The human imperial court has long been gone, and those cultivator experts have all disappeared. Only a coward like you is so timid. After saying that, he turned around, ignoring old Chai's angry look, and said loudly to the onlooking monsters, I'll tell you the truth, before I came here, I went to the human construction site and caused a ruckus. Look, I'm still intact. The era of humans has long passed, and now it's time for us monsters to rise. Who would have thought that this guy was so ambitious? Su Shenxing frowned and motioned for Mo Li to block his view. Then, he shrank into a corner and called Su Feng. Hey, what's the matter, master? Have you rescued that tenant? What? Rescue my ass. I'll settle this with you in 2 days. Now, check what happened at the development site at the foot of Crimson Cloud Mountain and how many people were injured or killed. Damn, you're so arrogant even when you're asking for help. Aren't you afraid that I'll kick you? Alright. At worst, I'll just ignore this matter. You'll regret it when it happens. After all, Su Feng was a civil servant who was in charge of this. If Su Shenxing was in charge of this matter purely out of a sense of responsibility, then for Su Feng, it was purely out of obligation. Although he didn't know what Su Shenxing was dealing with, from Su Shenxing's past experience, it was obvious that he was solving a supernatural problem that ordinary people couldn't interfere with. It was reasonable for him to lend a helping hand. Okay, I'll check it out, but you'd better not have too much hope. After all, that's not under my jurisdiction. At the same time, the argument between the Huang family and the Chai family began to heat up. Thanks to them, no one cared about Su Shenxing, a stranger who was hiding in the corner. You brats who have never experienced being hunted by cultivators have no idea how terrifying those human cultivators are. Old Chai shouted himself hoarse. He pointed his trembling finger at Huang Lao Wu's nose. Blue veins popped out on his wrinkled forehead. Let's not talk about other things. We have the Bailu temple above us. You should know about the cultivation of those cow noses. Can't they touch us? No, it's just that they don't even bother to touch us. Maybe they're just strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Speaking of the Bailu temple, Huang Lao Wu, who was so arrogant just a moment ago, was also a little scared. He argued with a lack of confidence. After all, we haven't seen them appear in the world for hundreds of years. Not born? It's just that they don't care about us who are at the foot of the mountain. Now, they are at least 100 miles away from us for their training. Old Chai saw that he had finally suppressed the other party's arrogance. He could not help but continue. Let's not talk about those Bailu temple disciples who are traveling around. Even those people in the temple are not people we can afford to offend. 2 days ago, the main hall of the Bailu temple ascended to the sky. I'm not the only one who saw that, right? It's obvious that they intend to fly into the astral wind layer and collect the astral wind essence to help their cultivation. Even if they don't succeed in the end, tell me, except for the Master Hong Yi, who has the cultivation to enter the astral wind layer and escape unscathed? The monsters looked at each other. They were completely frightened by old Chai. Qin Xingyan was covering for Su Shenxing, who was talking on the phone. At the same time, he was listening to the little monsters talking about the incident of the main hall of the Bailu temple ascending to the sky 2 days ago. Most of the little monsters were very afraid of this and exclaimed that the Bailu temple was invincible. Then what do you think we should do? Let me say this first, I'm not moving. And even if we can move, the Master Hong Yi can't move. We can't just watch the Master Hong Ye's real body be destroyed by humans. Old Fifth Huang was completely listless this time, but his mouth was still unconvinced as he spoke. The Master Hong Ye's real body is a 1,000-year-old red leaf maple. It's the one we passed through when we came in. It's also the oldest monster on Crimson Cloud Mountain. As the tour guide, Sister Wan very competently inserted a paragraph of explanation. Some of the little monsters have seen the human's development plan. The Master Hong Ye's real body is also included in the list of things that need to be cut down. It doesn't matter. Donor Huang, you don't have to worry about me. Right or wrong, success or failure is nothing. I've stayed here for 1,362 years, 7 months, and 13 days. I've already seen through the mortal world and life and death. Master Hong Yi, who had been sitting in the middle like a meditating old monk, suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Back then, Yun Guanyu wanted me to abandon Buddhism and enter Tao, so that I could guard the formation eye of the mountain guarding formation for his white deer temple. I didn't agree, and was almost killed by him. Now, it's only my real body that has been destroyed. I don't mind. Maybe without my physical body, my Buddha's heart can be more enlightened. Why should we get involved in the human's affairs?" Although he didn't say it explicitly, what he meant was that even if his real body was destroyed, he hoped that the monsters wouldn't fight with the humans, so that they wouldn't be killed. Those little monsters praised Master Hong Ye's righteousness. Only Huang Lao Wu's expression changed several times. In the end, he punched the bluestone table, leaving a fist mark on the table that had been soaked in demon aura for several years and had become extremely hard. "You ungrateful bastards! I don't believe that you don't know what it means to a plant monster like Master Hongyi if his real body is destroyed. Pat your conscience and tell me, who here hasn't received the kindness of Master Hongyi? I'm different from you. If it weren't for Master Hongye's help when I was in trouble, my Huang family would have been cut off long ago. Today, even if I have to give up my head and burn down the Bailu temple, I will protect Master Hongye's real body from being destroyed." When Huang Lao Wu finished speaking, his shamate head had completely turned into a weasel's. It seemed that he was too agitated to maintain his human form. He bowed to Master Hongyi. "If anything happens to my family, I hope that Master Hongyi will take good care of my child, Huang Ying." After he finished speaking, he leaped out of the hall and disappeared from the courtyard like a gust of yellow wind. "Hello, are you still there?" It was only then that Su Feng's voice sounded from the phone again. "I've checked. There was an accident at the construction site yesterday. Many of the scaffolding collapsed. The excavator and crane also had some inexplicable problems." "Yes. Is that so?" Su Shenxing stared at the sky outside the courtyard. No one knew what he was thinking about. But there's one thing that's strange. Normally, at least 11 or 12 people would die in such a big accident. But yesterday, only one person broke his arm. It's considered a serious injury. The others only had some abrasions at most. You should know that yesterday's accident didn't happen in the middle of the night. It happened suddenly during normal work. Many people on the scaffolding fell from 5 or 6 stories, but nothing happened. They were just a little frightened." "Oh. I see. I understand. If there's nothing else, I'm going to hang up. F***CK, Shinju, wait, that can't explode, beep beep." Hearing the busy tone from the phone, Su Shenxing put down his broken phone and sighed. Seeing that Su Shenxing had finished his call, Qin Xingyan came over and asked softly, "What do we do next?" "Let's continue shopping." Mo Li also came over and suggested. Su Shenxing pushed away Mo Li's little face, which was covered in grilled fish sauce, and replied, "We'll go back to the Bailu temple first to prepare." "Oh right, Qin Xingyan, have you ever been a shaman?" "What?" Chapter 50. Wang Qinzhen felt a headache coming on. The development of Crimson Cloud Mountain was the first step of the company's plan to build Zhejiang's tourist attraction. The initial investment was already over 1.2 billion. If this was done well, he would have left a big mark on his promotion record. But for some reason, once he took over, the development of the tourist attraction started to fail. Initially, it was a group of Taoist priests who came to his door to complain that the construction team had destroyed their mountain gate. He rushed over to take a look, but the gate that they were talking about was just a few broken trees. This was truly a case of poor mountains and turbulent rivers. Wang Qinzhen had already categorized these Taoist priests as troublemakers. Even if he had to go to court, he was not afraid. Then, he lost the lawsuit, and the judgment was slapped in his face. The company had to pay several million RMB to the group of Taoist priests who did not seem to have any background. He was so angry that he planned to appeal, but the company sent someone to tell him to stay away from these Taoist priests. Now he understood that these Taoist priests probably had a powerful backer that even the company could not afford to offend. Thankfully, the other party did not continue to interfere with the development. The higher-ups understood that this was an emergency, and it was not Wang Chunyan's fault, so they did not fire him. Of course, there were many people at the company who came to watch the show, and there was no shortage of rumors. This also made Wang Chunyan muster up all his energy. He wanted to do something to let the people above him understand that choosing him was definitely the right choice. In the end, after 2 days of peace, the scaffolding collapsed, knocking over the crane and excavator. If it weren't for the fact that most of the migrant workers were not seriously injured and the losses were not too great, he would have handed in his resignation letter and left the company with his tail between his legs. Even so, his position in the head office had become precarious. The people who were close to him had begun to keep their distance from him. Who knew when this small boat would capsize? The company's internal phone on the office desk rang shrilly. Wang Chunyan picked up the phone with annoyance. "What's wrong?" "CEO Wang, there's a guest heading your way." The receptionist's voice came through the phone, but her tone was weird, like she had seen something unbelievable. "What guest? Do you have an appointment?" Wang Chunyan had been frowning for the past few days. He searched his memory for a long time, but he couldn't remember any arrangements for today. No, the security couldn't stop him. Before the receptionist could finish speaking, the door to the manager's office was pulled open from the outside. Wang Chunyan looked at the man in front of him, the corners of his eyes twitching uncontrollably. The other party was wearing a white t-shirt that was so bad that it looked like it was from a street stall. There was a skull printed on it, a pair of cropped jeans, and a pair of sneakers whose original color could no longer be seen on his feet. So far, everything looked normal. The problem was that this guy was wearing a Daoist hat on his head, and he was holding a white cloth banner with the words, "Exorcise evil, avoid evil, subdue evil, eliminate evil" written on it. Wang Chunyan, who was used to seeing business elites in suits and ties, could not find any other words to describe his current mood. What kind of postmodern outfit was this? "Benefactor, I see that your glabella is dark. I'm afraid there will be a bloody disaster." As soon as the other party opened his mouth, he spoke in Mandarin with a Zhejiang accent, full of the typical opening remarks of a fortune-teller in cheap movies. "If you trust me, give me 450 yuan, and I'll find a way to resolve this calamity for you." Wang Chunyan thought for a moment, then said to the security guards who rushed to the door, not knowing what to do. "How dare you, get out!" Therefore, the security guards grabbed his hands and hugged his thighs. They lifted the otherworldly expert up and threw him out of the company under the watchful eyes of the employees. *CK, there's a gay among the security guards. Su Shenxing climbed up from the ground with his hands and feet. He looked at the security guards who had returned to the office building and said with lingering fear, "I felt someone touch my butt just now, so what should we do next?" Qin Xingyan, who came out from behind a sycamore tree, helplessly covered his forehead. "I already said that you have no chance like this. I've already changed my slippers." "How could?" Su Shenxing was quite regretful. "Could it be that cropped jeans won't work? Then I can only try the Hawaiian-style beach pants." No, that's not the problem at all," Qin Xingyan said with an embarrassed face. "Even if I'm not born, I know that you're completely different from a fortune teller. Now we can only wait." Su Shenxing patted his pants and picked up the white cloth sail. "Emily, what do you want to eat?" "Orchard slime juice, with ice." The little girl, who looked as if she would faint at any time, murmured. "What kind of strange drink is that?" Qin Xingyan continued to complain. "Oh, I've heard of it, it's a famous product of Lavinia." Su Shenxing hammered his hand. "You really have it? That kind of stuff?" The girl was shocked. But I can't get it now, it's better to drink something from earth. Landlord, you're such a loser, no wonder you're bald. Angry, I always feel that your worldview is a little different from mine. Qin Xingyan looked at Su Shenxing, who was rubbing his beard stubble on Mo Li's face, and couldn't help but feel a little helpless. Stop joking around, hurry up and tell me what we should do next, we just have to wait. Su Shenxing's wrist was obviously stronger than Mo Li's. Despite the latter's struggles, he held her by the waist. I saw an ice cream shop on the way here, let's go there and sit for a while. Is that really okay? Qin Xingyan quickly followed Su Shenxing, but the girl still couldn't let it go. Although the construction site is temporarily closed because of the hot weather, it'll be reopened at 5 or 6 o'clock when the heat subsides. At that time, won't Huang Lao Wu attack those migrant workers? And speaking of which, with your strength, won't it be faster to directly beat Huang Lao Wu to the ground? Using force to force those monsters to move. It'll probably take about 10 minutes. Su Shenxing said as they walked. But if I leave, do you think those monsters will be peaceful? People who are forced to leave their homeland. Ahem, I mean monsters, will they really be willing to settle down in a new place? But it doesn't have to be so troublesome. Qin Xingyan muttered in a low voice. And what's the use of just waiting like this? If you're willing to treat me, Su Shenxing winked at Qin Xingyan as the two of them arrived in front of the ice cream shop with a large piece of luggage. I'll tell you. Chapter 51. Although it's not very nice to say this, but in reality, people have a cheap mentality. Su Shenxing picked up the drink in front of him and took a sip. Then, he began to explain his plan to Qin Xingyan. For many people, things that they haven't gotten will always be more precious than things that are delivered to their doorstep. Manager Wang is the same. Then why did you go look for him just now? Qin Xingyan didn't understand and asked, and why did you do it in that way? Of course it's to leave an impression. Otherwise, he won't know who to look for when the time comes. As for my image, it's definitely for the sake of impact. It's convenient for him to leave a deep impression. Su Shenxing had a face full of strategizing. The most important thing is that my appearance is different from that of the Bailu Temple. Naturally, he won't subconsciously think that I'm from the Bailu Temple and think that the Bailu Temple is causing trouble again. You're so sure that he'll come looking for you? Qin Xingyan couldn't believe it. Didn't you just say a few words to him and he kicked you out? And he was even carried out. Su Shenxing glanced at Mo Li, who was drinking honey tea with her head lowered. He guessed that this girl must have sold him out. Otherwise, how would Qin Xingyan know what happened inside? Su Shenxing's body was almost immune to all spying techniques. Unless he gave his permission, any technique that targeted him, observed him, or marked him, would have no effect. Even the surveillance cameras couldn't capture a clear image of his face. They could only see a blurry image. The only person who could observe him without his permission was Mo Li. I won't give you the honey tea. Mo Li raised her head and looked at Su Shenxing, who was staring at her. She immediately hugged the honey tea in her arms and looked at Su Shenxing vigilantly like a mother hen protecting her young. Su Shenxing wasn't really angry. He just continued to talk to Qin Xingyan. In fact, that sentence is enough as an introduction. Could it be that there's some secret behind the 450? No, the point isn't 450. Su Shenxing scratched his face. It's the phrase, there will be a bloody calamity. Are you waiting for him to bump into Huang Lao Wu? But isn't Mr. Wang the manager? People in this position usually don't go to the construction site, right? Qin Xingyan still couldn't understand. That's right. That's why I'll be the one to create his bloody calamity. Su Shenxing played with the straw in his cup and said with a faint smile, didn't you notice that the spirit ghosts that were following me before are all gone? Hey, don't worry, they'll handle it well. Su Shenxing grinned. it's only at times like this that I want to thank their original owner. That guy seems to have the spirit ghosts go to rich people's houses and pretend to be haunted when he's out of money. Then he pretends to exorcise the ghosts in order to cheat them of their money. Thanks to this, they're very good at this kind of work." With that, he finished his drink in one gulp and poured the ice cubes into his mouth. He chewed loudly and said, "That Wang guy should be looking for me all over the streets now. It's about time for us to part ways. Molly will tell you the rest of the plan." "When did you discuss it with Emily?" Qin Xingyan couldn't help but be surprised. She and Emily hadn't been separated for the whole day. If Su Shenxing wanted to talk to Emily about the plan, he wouldn't be able to avoid her. "Humph, you still don't know, right? Emily and I share a common destiny. We've long surpassed the level of telepathy." Su Shenxing puffed out his chest and said proudly, "Emily, come and show her. Guess what I'm thinking right now? Hee hee. Miss over there, do you want to go on a date?" Su Shenxing raised his hand and slashed the little girl's forehead. "Ouch. I'm angry, I'm going to destroy the solar system." Looking at the two girls playing around again, Qin Xingyan sighed in amusement and helplessness. Dividing line, "Master, don't go." Wang Qinzhen finally found Su Shenxing on the street who hadn't gone far. "I've finally found you, master." At this time, he looked quite miserable. Not only did he look like he had been ravaged by hundreds of burly men, his clothes were disheveled, his tie was missing, and there were bruises on his forehead. It looked like he had suffered a lot. Su Shenxing gave the ghost spirits behind Wang Qinzhen a thumbs up. The ghost spirits who were praised by their master looked very excited. "Benefactor, is there anything I can help you with?" Su Shenxing asked as if nothing had happened. "That. Master, I'm sorry for offending you just now." "That. Do you think my bloody disaster can be saved?" Wang Qinzhen was really scared. He originally thought that this weird guy was just crazy. Who knew that after he left, a series of accidents happened to him one after another. First, his tie got hooked on an iron frame and almost hung him to death. Then, boiling water was splashed on his face. In order to avoid the boiling water, he rolled down the stairs and fell with a bloody nose and a swollen face. But all of this was just the appetizer. After almost being hit by a falling flower pot, almost being crushed by a roadside billboard, and almost being turned gay by a famous gay man in the company, he was finally scared. He desperately tried to find the master, who should not be far away. And after almost being hit by a car, almost hitting an old man who was trying to extort money, and almost being brainwashed by a pyramid scheme, he finally found Su Shenxing. This experience of going through untold hardships, which was similar to going to the West, and without the help of a disciple, had finally come to an end. He could not help but run to Su Shenxing, almost hugging his thigh and crying. Su Shenxing pretended to look left and right, and then sighed while Wang Qinzhen was in a state of uneasiness. "Give up. Master, master, you can't do this. Master, you have to help me." Wang Qinzhen shuddered. Needless to say, he was extremely anxious. If he couldn't resolve this bloody disaster, his trip out of the house would be like the Grim Reaper coming to the set. Who could bear that? Besides, if he really died, who could he cry to? Even if the company admitted that this was a work injury, he would not be lucky enough to receive any money. Actually, it's not hopeless. Seeing that the strong medicine was about to be used, Manager Wang would be scared out of his wits if he continued to keep him in suspense. Su Shenxing hesitated, "But because you delayed it for a while, the best time has passed. It's much more troublesome to solve it now." "It's no trouble at all. Master, please tell me what to do." Wang Qinzhen, who finally grasped this life-saving straw, hurriedly patted his chest and promised, "As long as I can do it, I will definitely do it." "Ahem, have you heard of the Only? Ahem, opening altar practice?" Chapter 52. Of course, Su Shenxing wouldn't do anything about it. After all, he was just a savior, and his profession didn't match. However, this didn't prevent him from pretending to be knowledgeable in front of ordinary people. Listen to me. That big maple tree can't be cut down. It has to be left there. Why? Of course, it's used to stabilize the feng shui and bring in wealth. Have you heard of a branch that outshines the others? Is that what you mean by outshines the others? Wang Qinzhen, who was sprayed with saliva by Su Shenxing, asked suspiciously. You know nothing. Maple trees are originally fiery trees. This kind of old maple tree that has been growing in the deep mountains for God knows how many years and hasn't been hollowed out by insects is a first-class auspicious sign. It's a natural feng shui magic tool. Su Shenxing continued to talk nonsense without any psychological burden. Wang Qinzhen recalled the construction drawings and found that the old maple tree that Su Shenxing pointed out was located in a place that was originally supposed to be a square. Even if it was left there, it wouldn't hinder the construction of the house, so he readily agreed. The foreman on the side very sensibly recorded this matter in a small notebook. At this time, several migrant workers suddenly rushed over and shouted to the foreman, "Foreman, the camping cabin that was built before suddenly caught fire. Several of our brothers are trapped inside and can't get out." Hearing this, the foreman didn't have time to continue to flatter Wang Qinzhen. He rushed to the scene of the fire with the migrant workers. Su Shenxing and Wang Qinzhen naturally followed closely behind. By the time they arrived, the flames had almost swallowed the entire two-story cabin. The crackling flames rose to a height of more than 10 meters. The scene was extremely shocking. Moreover, there was a strange light yellow wind blowing around the cabin. While hindering people from saving people, it also made the flames more vigorous. Because it was in the mountains, the fire brigade hadn't arrived yet. The migrant workers outside the cabin had a sad look on their faces. Obviously, they felt sad for their colleagues who might have been killed. Seeing this, Su Shenxing's face turned cold. He snorted and went straight to the fire. In front of the panicked foreman and other migrant workers, he ignored the flames, kicked open the half-burnt wooden door, and rushed in. "Master! Master, you're too impulsive." Wang Qinzhen could not stop him in time. He was so anxious that he stomped his feet. The strange wind seemed to be angered by Su Shenxing's behavior. It blew even more fiercely, and the flames soared to a new height. The rising hot air completely isolated the migrant workers who wanted to imitate the wind. Even if they got close to their skin, they would feel the burning pain. The charred pillars of the house were finally unable to bear the burden, and the entire wooden house collapsed with a loud bang, causing everyone to completely lose hope in whether the people inside could survive. At this moment, a piece of burning wreckage, either from the wall or the roof, was kicked away with a bang. Even the flames rose several meters into the air. Following that, a figure leaped out of the fire with two seemingly unconscious migrant workers in tow. Like a bolt of lightning, they rushed out of the fire. "Grandmaster!" When Wang Qinzhen saw that Su Shenxing was safe and sound, he could not help but feel relieved. These two people may have been poisoned by carbon monoxide. "You'd better send them to the hospital as soon as possible," Su Shenxing said to the other migrant workers as he wiped his face that was blackened by the smoke. The migrant workers immediately moved the two unconscious people to the foot of the mountain gratefully. "Benefactor, it seems that other than the bloody disaster, you have other disasters." Su Shenxing continued to persuade Wang Qinzhen, "I'm afraid this is not the first time this kind of thing has happened, right?" Wang Qinzhen suddenly remembered the scaffolding collapse accident a few days ago. His face turned pale. "Grandmaster, you must save me. Since I've agreed to this matter, I definitely won't give up halfway. You go down and prepare the things I just mentioned. I'll walk around here and see if there's a suitable place to open the altar." Wang Qinzhen seemed to have found his backbone. He went down the mountain gratefully. If he still had some doubts about Su Shenxing before, he was completely convinced after seeing Su Shenxing save people in the fire. What kind of liar would sacrifice himself to rush into such a dangerous place to save two strangers? After saying goodbye to Wang Qinzhen, Su Shenxing looked at the charcoal fire that had become smaller but was still shockingly hot. He frowned slightly, although it's a little earlier than planned, since the monsters have already started. He muttered a few words to himself and quickly walked into the nearby forest. The woods were quite dense, but at this moment, the wind was whistling. It sounded like someone was whistling, which made people involuntarily feel scared. Therefore, Su Shenxing waved his fist and beat out the guy who was pretending to be a ghost in the woods. You're not an ordinary person. Huang Lao Wu covered his cheek and looked at Su Shenxing in surprise while seeing stars. It was also you who collapsed the scaffolding a few days ago, right? You obviously didn't hurt the humans at that time. Why are you so cruel this time? Su Shenxing asked coldly. If it weren't for him, the two workers in the room would have definitely died. At most, they would have to choose between being burned to death, crushed to death, or suffocated to death. After all, ordinary people couldn't break through the blockade of the evil wind. Why should I tell? Ah! Before he finished speaking, he was kicked out by Su Shenxing. After that, Su Shenxing didn't bother to continue the interrogation. After all, the reason was nothing more than, since I can't move the humans with minor injuries, I can only severely injure or even kill a few people. He just grabbed the guy by the back of his collar and dragged him into the old maple tree not far away, the place where the monsters gathered. The originally bustling monster market was suddenly shocked by the sudden appearance of Su Shenxing, who was dragging one of the local big monsters, Huang Lao Wu, with one hand. No matter how you looked at it, he didn't come with good intentions. For a moment, the whole street was quiet. Su Shenxing didn't seem to care about the surrounding gazes at all. He just kept struggling and dragged Huang Lao Wu, who couldn't break free at all the way into Master Hong Ye's residence. Master Hong Ye and Old Chai, who hadn't left yet, had already received the news from the other monsters. At this moment, they were on guard. Cultivator, what do you mean by this? Old Chai, who usually didn't get along with Huang Lao Wu, didn't have the slightest hint of gloating at this moment. Instead, he stared at Su Shenxing vigilantly. Under the bluestone table, his withered old hands were tightly clenched. He was in a state where he was ready to attack at any time. Su Shenxing swung his hand and threw Huang Lao Wu forward. Huang Lao Wu awkwardly knocked over the stone table. Then, he stumbled and stood up. His eyes were bloodshot. Obviously, this humiliation made him lose his mind. However, Su Shenxing was familiar with this as if he didn't see it. He looked around, and the demons around him all looked at him with hostility. I'm not targeting any of you monsters. He kicked Huang Lao Wu, who stood up with difficulty, and stepped on the latter's head. I'm saying that all the monsters here are trash. He kicked Huang Lao Wu again and made a fighting pose like Huang Feihong. I'm in a hurry. All of you come at me together. Chapter 53. The process of the battle was too tragic, so there was no need to repeat it here. In short, it could be summed up in the following few sentences: the monsters surrounded Su Shenxing. The monsters began to besiege Su Shenxing. The monsters felt that they had a great advantage. Su Shenxing waved his fist. The monsters typed out GG. The battle lasted for 1 minute and 46 seconds. Of course, the real scene was more tragic, mainly from the bruised and swollen faces of the monsters. Who's next? As the only one still standing, Su Shenxing looked down at the monsters on the ground who couldn't even stand up. This fellow Taoist, Master Hongyi, struggled to sit up, looked at Su Shenxing, who was full of disdain, and asked with a bitter smile, "May I ask how we offended you?" You suddenly barged into this place and attacked us. Isn't this too unreasonable? From their point of view, Su Shenxing's sudden attack was indeed like a calamity falling from the sky, especially those little monsters who were still immersed in the atmosphere of the Emperor's Flow Festival. Before they knew anything, they were forced to attack Su Shenxing, and then, without knowing anything, they were almost killed by the aftermath of the cloud scales on Su Shenxing's fists. Do humans need a reason to eliminate monsters? Su Shenxing smiled coldly and said, "You don't surrender, and you don't want to die. This makes it very difficult for me. I understand. We'll move out of here and never set foot in the human world again." Master Hongyi was disappointed. It was not rare for human cultivators to hate monsters. In fact, the current situation was much better than the ancient times when spiritual aura was abundant. At that time, there were more monsters, but human cultivators caught them wave after wave to refine elixirs and weapons under the banner of subduing monsters. If it wasn't for the fact that anything could become a monster as long as there was abundant spiritual aura at that time, they would have gone extinct long ago. However, Master Hongyi didn't expect that there would be such a powerful human cultivator who hated monsters in the current era when spiritual aura was scarce. Perhaps even Yun Guanyu, who was known as a world-shaking genius, was inferior to him. When did you have the misconception that I would let you go? Su Shenxing sneered and said with a wicked face, "Haven't you heard of the saying that evil must be eradicated? What if you attack ordinary people after I let you go? Don't even think about leaving today. All of you will die here." You, Hongya pointed at Su Shenxing, but she was so angry that her finger was trembling. "Master, he's tampered with the barrier outside. Our brothers can't get out." A little monster who wanted to sneak out of this place cried out miserably. Su Shenxing didn't have any spellcasting ability, but he had the ability to protect. Now, the enchantment that the little monsters used to prevent humans from entering by mistake had been added with the blessing of the Holy Land. This enchantment was originally used to prevent non-friendly units from entering the enchantment, but now it was used to trap the little monsters in the enchantment. Now, the demons here were like old turtles trapped in a jar. There was no way out. "We'll fight you to the death." Huang Lao Wu roared and tried to stand up with all his might. However, Su Shenxing just glanced at him with contempt and said indifferently, "You don't deserve it." Almost all the little monsters understood that even if they really gave up their monster cores and used all their skills, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything to the other party. The scene of Su Shenxing breaking the combined attack of all the little monsters with a casual wave of his fist had already left a mark of fear in their hearts. Could it be that all the little monsters of Crimson Heaven Mountain would die here today? With the loss of spiritual chi in this world, there probably wouldn't be new little monsters born in the next 100 years. The inheritance of the little monsters of Crimson Heaven Mountain would also be completely cut off. Thinking of this, Hongya, who had lived for 1,000 years and thought that everything was nothing, couldn't help but feel sad. At this moment, the sound of glass shattering came from the sky above the courtyard that had long been reduced to ruins. As the sound rang out again, spiderweb-like cracks appeared in the blue sky. This is, all the little monsters, including Hongya, raised their heads to look at the sky. Then, the sky loudly shattered, and 3 figures fell from the sky along with the fragments of the sky. The one in the lead was a petite girl with blonde hair and twin ponytails. The flame condensed from magic power in her right hand was jumping excitedly. It seemed that she had used this to break the barrier just now. Next was Qin Xingyan, who had changed into the standard Taoist robes of the Bailu Temple. At this moment, the girl was looking at Su Shenxing with a complicated gaze. Finally, there was the little monster Wan, who was in a sense the little monster. The little monsters couldn't help but whisper to each other. Could the one in the lead be a little monster from the west? Although the demonic aura on her hand is a little strange, it's shockingly strong. If it's her, maybe, the girl in the back seems to be from the Bailu Temple on the mountain. Is the Bailu Temple also involved in this matter? Its sister Wan, were saved. 1. 13th aunt, quickly save your nephew. Then, Qin Xingyan saw Sister Wan, run to the side with a black face. She used her wooden slippers to fiercely step on the little monster who called her 13th aunt. Ahem, Su Shenxing used a dry cough to draw the attention of the little monster who was moaning either in pleasure or in pain back to himself. Then, he once again put on a contemptuous expression and looked at Qin Xingyan. What's wrong? Has the Bailu temple also fallen to the point of associating with demons? Without waiting for Qin Xingyan to answer according to the script, Mo Li extinguished the magic power in his hand and walked towards Su Shenxing. Are they going to fight? Although they didn't know what the true form of this blonde girl with double ponytails was, judging from her appearance just now, she was definitely at the level of a big monster. Maybe she and that monster-like human cultivator really had the power to fight. All the monsters were inexplicably looking forward to it. Even Qin Xingyan was a little nervous. He still didn't understand Mo Li's way of thinking. Walking to the side of the overturned bluestone table, Mo Li squatted down and picked up a huge watermelon from the ground. She smashed it open with her fist and buried her head in it, ignoring the astonished looks of everyone. Su Shenxing, Qin Xingyan, all the monsters, hey, give us back our expectations. Almost all the monsters were shouting in their hearts. Su Shenxing's mouth twitched, and he resisted the urge to leave. Damn it, I know it's my fault that we don't have money to buy fruits for you, but do you have to pick up fruits in this place to eat? Not good, where were we acting just now? Ahem, ahem. Su Shenxing once again used the great art of dry coughing and tried his best to ignore Jasmine's strange actions. He sneered and continued to act. What, did I hit your sore spot and you can't speak? Qin Xingyan, who was a little out of character, hurriedly put on a serious expression. Not all monsters are evil. Nearly half of the vegetation on Red Cloud Mountain was planted by monsters. When the village at the foot of Red Cloud Mountain was just built, the monsters secretly helped the villagers. Let's not talk about other things. Now, the Master Hong Yi over there once turned into a doctor and treated the villagers' illnesses. So what? As far as I know, this place will be developed soon. When that time comes, who knows what kind of crazy things these monsters who have lost their homes will do? Su Shenxing smiled coldly, and everyone was shocked by his murderous aura. The whole place was silent, and only the sound of Mo Li eating watermelon was particularly clear. In fact, there are already monsters who ran over to cause trouble, and I caught them red-handed. This is my own idea, and it has nothing to do with other monsters. Huang Lao Wu lay on the ground and said stubbornly, if you want to kill someone, just kill me. However, Su Shenxing and Qin Xingyan tacitly ignored him. Our Bailu temple has already found a new habitat for the monsters here, and we promise that they won't do anything to harm mortals. Qin Xingyan said loudly. Oh? You're so kind as to spend so much effort for these monsters? Su Shenxing showed an expression of disbelief. Our Bailu temple has been established in Crimson Cloud Mountain for thousands of years, and the seniors in the temple have some kind of karma with the monsters here, so we won't sit and watch them be killed here. Qin Xingyan said half-truthfully, I'd like to ask this, senior to do our Bailu temple a favor and let go of the monsters here. Of course, our Bailu temple will thank you in other ways afterwards. Humph. The Bailu temple has some karma with me, so I'll do you a favor. But remember, if there are monsters who don't obey and go down the mountain to harm mortals, I'll drive all the monsters here away even if I have to fall out with Yunguanyu. After that, Su Shenxing flicked his sleeves and left, although the t-shirt didn't have sleeves. Qin Xingyan wanted to say something, but at this time, the monsters who had slightly recovered thanked her for saving their lives, and blocked her in the courtyard, so the girl could only see Su Shenxing's lonely back from afar. Chapter 54. Since ancient times, the carrot and the stick had always been one of the most effective methods. If the monsters were asked to move for no reason, and they even had to rely on the Bailu Temple to survive in the back of the mountain and be supervised by them, there would definitely be many monsters who would be dissatisfied and resentful. They might even go against the order and do some stupid things. Although it was not impossible to deal with them, it would definitely be more troublesome. Since that was the case, the Bailu Temple asked the monsters to move to the back of the mountain became the Bailu Temple allowed the monsters to move to the back of the mountain. In order to survive, the monsters had no choice but to move to the back of the Bailu Temple, and because of this, they owed the Bailu Temple a favor. With this prerequisite, it should be easier to manage the monsters. The only price was that the monsters' resentment would all be borne by Su Shenqing. Of course, Su Shenqing did not tell this to Qin Xingyan, because based on his understanding of Qin Xingyan, although the girl was unruly like a cultivator, she was very clear about good and evil, right and wrong, and would not agree to this plan. Therefore, he hid his purpose, and only told her through Mo Li in the end, so she could only come here to act in a hurry. "Landlord, do you want to eat melon?" Mo Li had come to Su Shenqing's side without him noticing, and handed him half a melon. Hey, didn't you already dig out the sweetest melon heart?" Looking at Mo Li, who still had melon seeds on his face, Su Shenqing smiled and rubbed his little head. At least now, no matter where he went, Mo Li would accompany him. It was much better than being alone in the past. "Fellow Daoist, please wait." At this moment, an old voice came from behind Su Shenqing. "Are you Shen Gongbao?" Su Shenqing's mouth twitched. He turned around and found that the one who came was actually the maple tree monster, Hong Yi, who was beaten up badly by him before. "What's the matter? If you want to fight, I can accompany you." "I'm here to thank you, fellow Daoist." Master Hong Yi bowed to Su Shenqing. "Masochist." Mo Li's little face showed a shocked expression. Su Shenqing looked at his expression and felt that he was not being sarcastic. After a long time, he said, "Oh no, I accidentally hit you too hard just now and damaged your brain. I was confused just now, I didn't see your true intention." Hong Yi didn't care about Su Shenqing's ridicule. He just slowly said, "As fellow Daoist said, when you fought with us, you didn't go all out, right?" Su Shenqing was choked by his words. He could only roll his eyes and did not say anything. It was true that he didn't use too much strength in the fight earlier. After all, if he accidentally killed a demon, the two sides would really end up in a situation where neither side would rest until the other was dead. Now, the demon with the heaviest injuries was only at old Fifth Huang's level. Although the weasel's head was swollen like a pig's at the moment, as long as he rested a little, with the demon's recovery ability, he would completely recover in a week at most. "If you really wanted to kill us like you said at that time, you didn't need to show mercy at all. This shows that you didn't mean to hurt us from the beginning." Master Hong Yi said this and could not help but smile bitterly. "I was so anxious at that time that I didn't notice this at all. This is just your guess. It doesn't prove anything, right?" Su Shenqing turned his face and retorted, "Maybe I planned to keep you alive like a cat playing with a mouse?" "A man's tsundere is not cute at all," Mo Li said in a voice that only Su Shenqing could hear. The latter was speechless. This old monk is the most senior plant spirit in this forest. Other than the White Deer Temple and its surroundings, almost all the plants on Crimson Heaven's mountain can be this old monk's eyes. After you left, this old monk did a little research on your traces and found that you had already told the mortal landlords that you would leave this old monk's true form at the venue in the future before you came to cause a ruckus during the Emperor Flow Festival, right?" The old monster said with a smile, "I don't think that such a person would really kill the entire demon clan just because of a disagreement. You might not believe me, but I really have done something like that." Su Shenqing first muttered softly, then said suspiciously, "I'm surprised that you can recognize me." As a man with a mosaic, in theory, almost all spying abilities were ineffective against Su Shenqing unless Su Shenqing himself removed the protection. Because in all the images, only you seem to be shrouded in a cloud of fog. In other words, there was nothing wrong with treating this man with a mosaic as Su Shenxing. So you plan to tell this to the other monsters? Su Shenxing asked with a frown. Of course not. Master Hongyi shook his head. I agreed to move from the beginning. Before, I was worried about where to move to. Now that the friends of the Bailu Temple are willing to take over, it couldn't be better. You have arranged this well, so I don't need to add feet to a snake. But the only one who has to suffer is fellow Daoist who plays the bad guy. There's no need to care about this kind of thing. I'm already used to it. Su Shenxing waved his hand. Emily, we should go. F***ck, this time even the melon pulp is gone. Only the skin is left? It seemed that while Su Shenxing and Master Hongyi were chatting, Emily had already finished eating the melon. The melon skin is very tasty after it's cold, Emily said seriously. I'd rather eat pickled vegetables. Su Shenxing curled his lips. Although fellow Daoist has a noble character and unquestionable integrity and doesn't take credit for this, I still have to thank you on behalf of the thousands of monsters in Crimson Heaven's Mountain. With that, Master Hongyi flicked his sleeves and bowed to Su Shenxing. Su Shenxing and Emily could only look at each other in dismay. Then, as if they had reached some kind of tacit agreement, Su Shenxing grabbed Emily by the back of his collar. Emily was holding the melon skin, and then the two of them disappeared into the forest with a whoosh. Even so, Master Hongyi still bowed respectfully before getting up from the ground. He shook his head with a smile in the direction Su Shenxing and Emily had disappeared and sighed with emotion. What an incredible fellow Daoist. Humans are indeed creatures with infinite possibilities. No wonder they can replace monsters as the masters of the world. At this time, Su Shenxing and Emily had already arrived at the foot of the mountain. Let's pack up and get ready to go home. Since the favor owed for destroying the Bailu Temple had been repaid, Su Shenxing felt that it was about time for them to return to Jiangjin. After all, there were still many things waiting for him to do there. For example, he had to settle accounts with the guy who gave him false information and so on. Emily, who was still in Su Shenxing's hand, looked back at Su Shenxing and asked, Mr. Landlord, what about the spirit vein? Ah. Speaking of which, Qin Xingyan had returned to the Bailu Temple for this matter. Chapter 55. Xiao Zhengyi was woken up by the sound of an electric motor. He opened his sleepy eyes and waved his hand to chase away the shaver that was still moving around his face. He rubbed his messy hair and sat up on the bed. He stuffed the toothbrush into his mouth and brushed out a mouthful of foam. He looked at himself in the mirror and found that even though half of his eyebrows had been shaved off, his beard was still the same as yesterday. It was just that the electric razor was as smart as a mouse. It was not easy for Xiao Zhengyi to catch it with his skills. At this moment, his reflection in the mirror began to chatter. Look at how sloppy you are now. Look at your hair and nose hair. No wonder you don't have a girlfriend. Why don't you listen to me and style yourself? Before I came here, I was in charge of a hair salon. Wait, are you a second-hand product? Xiao Zhengyi almost choked on his toothpaste. But the renovation company said that you were a new product. Hey, can you trust the words of humans? His reflection in the mirror spread out his hands helplessly. Xiao Zhengyi thought for a while and decided to continue brushing his teeth. It had been half a month since Su Shenxing left Jiangjin. In this half a month, his life had been turned upside down. When the two higher-ups heard that he was friends with Su Shenxing, the man named Su Feng rescued him from the urban management team. Although it could not be said that he was reinstated, at least he was returned to the criminal police force. However, Captain Yen earnestly told him that he had to obey the arrangement. Before he could figure out what was going on, he was assigned to the two higher-ups and formed a special case investigation team. There were a total of 3 people in the team, including himself. The two higher-ups were considered leaders, so he was the only one who could run errands. Not only was it tiring, but the team was also slower than Su Shenxing in solving all kinds of strange cases. He had to work overtime every day until late at night. If that was all, it would not be a big deal. Ever since Xiao Zhengyi graduated and joined the criminal police force, he had no intention of enjoying life. Whether it was investigating all kinds of cases or solving them, it was his job. There was nothing to complain about. About 10 days ago, his superior, Su Feng, told him that he had prepared a house for him. The house was almost fully renovated, so he asked him to move in. As soon as he moved in, he realized that the house was unusual. The furniture here had a high probability of turning into strange little monsters. The reason was unknown. No wonder a small detective with no background like him could live in such a luxurious house. At first, Xiao Zhengyi thought that the place was haunted and was scared half to death. But he had to admit that the adaptability of humans was second only to cockroaches and rats. After 10 days, Xiao Zhengyi found that he had adapted to the current situation. After washing up, he sat on the chair. The chair did not disappoint. It loudly reported that Xiao Zhengyi was a little heavier than yesterday. The remote controller of the TV and the air conditioner seemed to have made a bet. The air conditioner even lost its number 7 battery to the TV remote controller. However, Xiao Zhengyi did not understand why a TV remote controller with a number 5 battery would need a number 7 battery. The microwave oven, which had already been prepared, opened with a ding sound. The instant breakfast and milk inside emitted waves of steam. Xiao Zhengyi took out the breakfast, took a bite, and savored it for a moment. It's a little drier than yesterday. But this time, it's warm. Although Xiao Zhengyi didn't know why a microwave would inspire him to become a super chef, he felt that it had no impact on his life. It was better to say that the microwave could do its best to prepare breakfast and dinner for him. He was actually earning, so he didn't hesitate to give some comments from a diner's point of view. After settling his personal matters in the morning, Xiao Zhengyi changed into the criminal police unit's uniform. He casually put the handcuffs and pen that were ballet dancing on the shoe cabinet into his pocket and went out. Although he had his own mansion in a high-end apartment, Xiao Zhengyi was just an ordinary police officer. His nature would not change. Naturally, he could only take the bus to work. Because of the police uniform, which was full of deterrence, he took the bus safely. Even if there were pickpockets on the bus, they would not dare to do anything when they saw Xiao Zhengyi's strong body and shrewd eyes. They would only pretend to be ordinary passengers, get off at the next bus stop, and go to the next bus stop to find their targets. But today, there were obviously some people who did not know the rules. He did not know if they were from other places or if they thought that Xiao Zhengyi was only strong in appearance but weak in reality. Not only did they dare to steal from under his nose, but they also glared at him as if they were demonstrating their power. They were really daring. Xiao Zhengyi glanced around and found that there were at least 4 or 5 people on the bus who were related to the pickpocket. They were vaguely covering for the pickpocket. Just as he was about to stand up and bring those people to justice, something unexpected happened. Catch the thief. Someone is stealing. A heroic-looking female passenger suddenly stood out and pointed at the pickpocket and shouted, "Hey! Hey! 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 Hey!" The thief was shocked and the wallet in his hand fell to the ground. However, he seemed to be a ruthless person. He quietly took out a butterfly knife. The person who had his wallet stolen wanted to say something, but when he saw the murder weapon, he was terrified. He did not care about the bulging wallet on the ground and squeezed through the crowd to the front of the bus. "Little girl, who are you slandering for stealing?" Seeing that his threat was so effective, the thief proudly picked up the wallet from the ground. "This was originally mine." He did not expect the female passenger to be so fearless. While the thief was not paying attention, she quickly dodged the wallet and took out her phone. The sharp-eyed people could even see that she had already dialed 110. It's not up to you to decide if it's yours or not. Let's wait for the police to come. You better be careful. Let's wait and see. The pickpocket naturally realized that the other party was calling the police. After saying those words, he forced the driver to pull over and got off the bus while cursing. However, the female passenger did not give up and wanted to get off the bus. You should know when to stop. Xiao Zhengyi patted the other party's shoulder. Those people are outlaws. It's better if you don't get involved in this mess. Although this matter was not under his control, Xiao Zhengyi felt that those people were probably involved in a case. Therefore, he should take action and catch them first. The brave female passenger stayed on the bus so that she would not be harmed by those criminals. There were not many people with such a sense of justice in today's society. Humph, I'm different from you. I'm obviously a police officer, but I don't even dare to fart when I see people stealing. The female passenger ungratefully slapped away Xiao Zhengyi's hand and got off the bus. Xiao Zhengyi, who did not expect to be bitten back, smiled bitterly and rubbed his hand. He could only get off the bus. Chapter 56. There were a total of 6 criminals. Xiao Zhengyi secretly compared the combat power of the two sides. His gun was left at the police station and he didn't bring it with him. If he brought it home, it would be dangerous if it became a demon. To be honest, his home was quite dangerous right now. However, Xiao Zhengyi was still a graduate of the police academy. Although he was usually beaten up by Emoli, who wasn't even as tall as his chest, he still knew how to use police martial arts. Moreover, when he used it, 3 to 5 burly men couldn't even get close to him. If it was a normal situation, he wouldn't be afraid of these 6 hooligans. At most, he could just kill one of them and run away. He didn't believe that these guys would dare to chase him into the police station. However, the problem was that there was still a female passenger with a strong sense of justice. Oh, I haven't come to find you yet and you've already delivered yourself to me. The pickpocket was still cursing, but when he saw the female passenger get out of the car, his eyes lit up. He called for his accomplices to surround the female passenger and Xiao Zhengyi. At the same time, he used a warning look to scare Xiao Zhengyi. I've already called the police. It's not too late for you to surrender now. The female passenger was like a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of tigers. This made Xiao Zhengyi anxious and he scratched his head. Turn yourself in, my ass. When the pickpocket heard that the female passenger was still using the police to scare him, he was instantly enraged. He pulled out a knife and slashed it at her face. If he really slashed her, she would be disfigured. Xiao Zhengyi was ready to act as a hero and save the damsel in distress. However, before he could do anything, the female passenger had already grabbed the pickpocket's arm. With a pull and a press, she pressed the pickpocket to the ground. The pickpocket groaned in pain as his arm was pulled back. This guy, woman, was also a martial artist. At this moment, Xiao Zhengyi's thoughts were in sync with the other criminals. When the other 5 saw that the pickpocket was restrained, they couldn't help but surround the female. On the other hand, Xiao Zhengyi, who was a police officer, was forgotten. The female passenger wasn't afraid. With a crack, she dislocated the pickpocket's right arm and faced the 5 men. However, Xiao Zhengyi noticed that they were secretly exchanging glances with each other. The moment they entered the female's attack range, the 5 men threw a handful of lime powder at her. The female was caught off guard and the 5 men rushed forward. Seeing that the female was about to suffer, Xiao Zhengyi, who had been waiting for a long time, finally had the chance to perform. First, he kicked a burly man who had his back facing him. Then, he took out a fountain pen and shouted, "Watch out for my hidden weapon." Then, he threw out the fountain pen that was shouting, that's not how you use a fountain pen." The burly man on the other side subconsciously dodged, only to find that it was just an ordinary fountain pen. Just as he was about to drag Xiao Jingyi out of the scuffle, he felt a sharp pain in his thigh. He looked down and found that the fountain pen had been inserted into his thigh. Furthermore, the entire tip of the pen had sunk into his thigh, the kind that was extremely deep. He didn't know if it had injured his aorta, but blood was gushing out uncontrollably. Thus, he clutched his thigh and screamed as he rolled on the ground. Before the burly man who had been kicked over could stand up, one of the three men who were scuffling with Xiao Jingyi found that his right hand and left leg were inexplicably handcuffed. His entire body was bent over like a prawn, unable to exert any strength. No matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. There were only two men left, so naturally, they weren't Xiao Jingyi's match. He defeated the two men in a few moves, then added a kick to the man who had been knocked over by him at first, who now seemed to have the strength to stand up. After sending him and the other man who had been handcuffed to hell, the sound of police sirens could be heard from afar. As expected of the Jiangjin police station. Every time, they only come after the incident is over. After cleaning up the scene that might expose his identity, Xiao Jingyi left the female passenger who was almost fully recovered. He put the fountain pen back into his pocket and ran to the next street to take a nap. Although the female passenger had seen his face, she had treated Xiao Jingyi as a tax maggot from the beginning to the end. Obviously, it was impossible for her to carefully observe Xiao Jingyi's appearance. Even if she had carefully observed him, it wouldn't have been that easy to identify him. Jiangjin was so big, and there were nearly 1 million people making a living in this city. How could two people who had never met before bump into each other so coincidentally? Thus, with a relatively relaxed mood, he went to the special office of the criminal police unit. Team leader Su Feng wasn't in the office at this time. The white-haired loli named Shinzu Tu, who looked like she was still in primary school, was fiddling with something that looked like flour mud. Xiao Jingyi subtly moved his seat away from Shinzu Tu. That flour mud was actually a type of explosive. When Su Feng said that it was just an ordinary plastic bomb, Xiao Jingyi foolishly believed him. Until he saw Shinzu Tu use a fingernail to blow up a monster that was as big as a bus and looked like Picasso into pieces. The biggest part of the monster's body was actually half a tooth. He decided that he would never believe Su Feng's nonsense again. Until now, Xiao Jingyi's heart still trembled in fear when he saw the second heart fiddling with that thing. He was afraid that if he wasn't careful, he would experience the joy of, "Why don't you ascend to the heavens?" Although he wasn't confident that his remaining body would have the ability to experience that feeling, Shinzu Tu suddenly thought of something and threw the flour mud away. Then, she rummaged through the drawer of her office desk to look for something. Xiao Jingyi carefully looked at the flour mud that was less than 30 centimeters away from him. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Could it be that this loli had something even scarier? Then, he saw her take out a stack of paper and start drawing on a small yellow book. And it was a BL type. Puff. I vomited blood. Shinzu Tu, who didn't seem to know how to speak, wrote on the paper. "I almost poked my own eyes out, okay? Wait a minute, why did the two naked men entwined together look so much like Su Feng and me?" Xiao Jingyi suddenly had a very bad premonition. Just when he was hesitating whether to risk his worldview to ask the other party, Su Feng pushed the door and entered. "Feel happy, handyman." As if he didn't see what Shinzu Tu was doing, he cheerfully said to Xiao Jingyi, "I found an assistant for you." The bad premonition became even stronger. "Hello, my name is Fang Xiaoqing." "Ah, it's you." The one who followed Su Feng in was the female passenger he met before. Chapter 57. Leader, is it really okay to let anyone join our team? Xiao Jingyi found an opportunity to ask Su Feng behind Fang Xiaoqing's back, or is she also related to supernatural events? Although supernatural phenomena and all kinds of supernatural creatures kept emerging in Jiangjin during this period of time, it could even be described as a blowout. Even the home appliances and furniture in Xiao Jingyi's own house showed signs of demonization. However, for ordinary people, under the efforts of the Special Case Investigation Team, Xiao Jingyi, the world still maintained its usual daily life. No one noticed the turbulent undercurrent behind the daily life. No, she's just an ordinary person. Su Feng shook his head. Anyway, we have a lot of fake cases that have nothing to do with the supernatural. It's not a good idea to let you run back and forth alone, so I arranged an assistant for you. Just be careful not to be noticed by her. Then I'll ask. Xiao Jingyi thought for a moment and asked in a low voice, what will happen if she notices? Just wait for your salary to be deducted. How should he put it? It didn't seem very serious. Unlike Su Shenqing, who was so miserable that he was about to be exposed to the elements, Xiao Jingyi didn't particularly care about money. Deduct about a year's salary. I promised to complete the mission. And, no matter how much money was like dirt, he still had to have money. Dividing line. Is this the scene of the crime? As Fang Xiaoqing's first police assignment, as soon as she got out of the police car, she immediately looked around, looking for traces that could be used as clues. I think it's a bit strange to call this the scene of the crime. Xiao Jingyi also got out of the car. This time, their mission was to investigate a certain residential area about a haunted house that always emitted strange sounds. According to the information obtained from the property management, the original owner of this house was still abroad. Previously, he rented it to a student from the nearby Jiangjin University, but later, the student suddenly died in there for a full 3 months before he was discovered. After that, no one dared to rent this house. Xiao Jingyi flipped through the notes and described the background of the case to Fang Xiaoqing. The latter had already taken out the key obtained from the property management and opened the door. Immediately, a stale aura gushed out from inside. Cough cough. How long has it been since this place was cleaned? Fang Xiaoqing covered her nose and coughed. The curtains in the room seemed to be drawn. Even though it was broad daylight, it was still pitch black. Xiao Jingyi fumbled around, found the light switch on the wall, and turned it on. Fortunately, the electricity in the house was not cut off, and the lights came back on in an instant. Then, the two of them were frightened. It wasn't that there was anything scary inside. It was just that starting from the entrance, there were posters of anime beauties pasted all over the walls. Officer Xiao, can I ask what kind of person the guy who suddenly died here was? Fang Xiaoqing's eyebrows twitched as she asked helplessly. Just as you thought, he's an otaku. Xiao Jingyi spread out his hands and replied, if it weren't for his netizens on a domestic same-sex dating website who found out that he hadn't been online for a long time and called the police, I'm afraid it would have taken a long time to find out that he was dead. It's obviously a very tragic thing, but I don't sympathize with him at all. What's going on? What a coincidence, me too. While talking, the two of them searched the house, but as expected, there were no clues related to the haunting. There were only various dusty figurines, Blu-ray DVDs, game consoles, and comic books. Xiao Jingyi sighed. Thinking about it, if it was really haunted, Su Feng wouldn't have let the two of them come here to deal with the situation. Because there were no windows in the house, although there was air conditioning, they couldn't use it at will. After searching for a long time in the stuffy and hot room, the two of them were sweating profusely. During the intermission, the two of them reluctantly found a place to settle down in the house full of furniture. They sat on the ground with napkins, drank their own mineral water, and chatted. Speaking of which, I haven't thanked Officer Xiao for what happened this morning. No need to thank me, after all, I'm also a police officer. Xiao Jingyi laughed. Then can I ask? How did you stab the criminal's leg with the fountain pen? Fang Xiaoqing seemed to have expected that Xiao Zhengyi would find a way to fool her, and she pressed on step by step. At that time, I had recovered a little bit of my vision, and I can confirm that the other party did indeed dodge the fountain pen you threw at him. You might not believe it, but in fact, the fountain pen did it by itself. Xiao Zhengyi thought for a moment and then told her the truth. It's okay if you don't want to tell me, but there's no need to tell such a low-level lie, right? Then, as he expected, the other party showed a look of disbelief. It's up to you to believe it or not, anyway, that's all I can say, Xiao Zhengyi shrugged, expressing helplessness. I'm very curious. Fang Xiaoqing moved closer to Xiao Zhengyi, opened her watery eyes wide, and quietly watched him. Wait. Don't come over. A certain someone who still retained his virginity immediately blushed, and his body unconsciously leaned back, but Fang Xiaoqing continued to move closer. As a result, the two of them fell together in a very ambiguous position. Fang Xiaoqing's body was unexpectedly soft. Xiao Zhengyi, who had witnessed the other party easily subduing the gangsters, originally thought that Fang Xiaoqing must be a muscular woman, and that her body should be as hard as iron, but he didn't expect that the touch was completely different from what he expected. Speaking of which, this kind of situation was generally called a lucky pervert in anime, right? Perhaps because of the surrounding environment, Xiao Zhengyi's mind flashed such a thought in an instant. Actually. Now. Go to. Die. At this time, a weak but gloomy voice echoed in the room. What? Xiao Zhengyi subconsciously raised his head and found a figure hanging on the ceiling, staring at the two of them. Then, he realized that the other party wasn't hanging on the ceiling, but half of its body came out from the ceiling. Not only that, the pearl-colored translucent texture was simply, you. Ghost. Xiao Zhengyi suddenly felt Fang Xiaoqing's body in his arm stiffen, and he found that the girl had unknowingly turned her head and saw the thing on the ceiling. Not good, my salary. Just as Xiao Zhengyi was about to find an excuse to fool it, and then the two of them would leave this place as soon as possible, the existence on the ceiling had already made its move. Now. Explode for me. I want to curse you. Chapter 58. Accompanied by gloomy and resentful words, a bone-piercing cold wind swirled in the room. After carefully avoiding the more expensive figurines and game consoles, it lifted all kinds of magazines, strategy books, and pornographic books together, turning into a turbulent wave that rushed towards Xiao Zhengyi and Fang Xiaoqing. Xiao Zhengyi abruptly raised his right hand, and the bracelet on his wrist immediately emitted a dazzling radiance. When the gloomy and cold ghost wind touched the radiance, it disappeared like snow without a trace. This bracelet came from Su Shenxing. After Xiao Zhengyi was saved by Su Shenxing by accident, he used 2 KFC family buckets and a week of shameless begging in exchange. It was said that it had a protective treasure. Xiao Zhengyi was able to see those strange existences with a mortal body because of this thing. By the way, the bracelet itself came from a street stall in a night market, and the price was about 50 cents, however, the torrent of cold wind could not move Xiao Zhengyi, but it turned to a bookshelf behind the two of them. The bookshelf made an ear-piercing creaking sound, and smashed towards Fang Xiaoqing, whose attention was completely attracted by the two people fighting in front of her, or one person and one ghost. Fang Xiaoqing was completely unable to react. Xiao Zhengyi noticed this in time. He had no choice but to shout, "Be careful." Then he pushed the girl back to the ground, using his body as a shield to protect her. The loud rumbling sound was accompanied by dust that swept up to the ceiling and filled the room. After a while, a slender hand stretched out from the pile of comic books and pushed away the bookshelf that had no books left. Then a figure came out of the pile of books. Cough cough. Fang Xiaoqing, are you okay? The slender figure waved her hand to disperse the choking smoke, but found that it was useless. Fortunately, her companion quickly woke up. "Officer Xiao, I'm fine." The other party covered his head, and his rather tall body also came out of the pile of books. Strange, is there a mirror here? Cough cough, why is there another me?" The two of them looked at each other, and after a long while, they exclaimed in unison. What's going on? Why did I become Officer Xiao?" Dividing line, the two of them, whose worldview had been greatly impacted, did not dare to stay in the room. Instead, they quickly returned to the police station, and then ran back to the office of the Special Case Investigation Team, startling Su Feng, who was playing Candy Crush on his phone. After listening to the two of them tell the story, team leader Su thought for a long time, and then said with uncertainty. "Today, it doesn't seem to be April Fool's, right? We're not joking with you." They had only started working together not long ago, but Fang Xiaoqing and Xiao Zhengyi had a very high synchronization rate as they complained to their team leader. "Well, if that's the case, then that's troublesome." After Su Feng confirmed that the two of them were not making fun of him, he couldn't help but frown. He habitually showed a bitter expression. "Because I didn't notice anything like an earthbound spirit in that house, that's why I sent you guys. And as far as I know, Soul Swap is a very high-level spell and ability." "Wait, why are team leader and Officer Xiao so calm?" "That was a specter, a specter. You're a genuine ghost." Fang Xiaoqing, who was wearing Xiao Zhengyi's appearance, waved her hands, and said excitedly, "This is definitely a big discovery that can shock the world. We've already farmed monsters that are many times stronger than that damn otaku ghost several times, okay?" Xiao Zhengyi and Su Feng looked at the new team member speechlessly. After a moment, they tacitly decided to ignore him, her, and continue. "Since he can use this kind of spell to swap human souls, it means that the other party is not too weak and has no sense of existence, so I can't find him. Instead, he has an ability like aura blocking to avoid my search. To be honest, even if I go there myself, I might not be able to find that guy." Su Feng said helplessly. "So that's how it is, squatting at home is an inherent skill of a damn otaku," Xiao Zhengyi muttered in his heart. Soon after, he asked unwillingly, "Then what about Xin Su's second young miss? Does she have a way to restore us to our original state?" To be honest, in the past, Shinsu had dealt with far more supernatural events than Su Feng. Although it could also be that as the team leader, Su Feng felt that those events were not worthy of him taking action, there was no doubt that Shinsu's image was more reliable than Su Feng's. Although in most cases, Shinsu would just blow up the enmity. It's not that there isn't any. I remember that she recently came up with something called Personality Recovery Bomb. It just so happens that she was still troubled by the lack of test explosives. Is there really no other way? So Xiao Zhengyi honestly dismissed the idea of asking Shinsu for help. "There is no exact method at the moment, but if it's just a suggestion, I have one." Su Feng touched his chin, and then said, "Actually, I just received news that your old friend has returned to Jiangjin. If it's him, he might have a solution." Xiao Zhengyi's beautiful eyes lit up. "Su Shenxing is finally back?" Fang Xiaoqing, who was talking to herself, saw Xiao Zhengyi's appearance and couldn't help but ask curiously, "Who is Su Shenxing?" "Jiangjin City's supernatural expert." Xiao Zhengyi stood up and winked at Su Feng, "Team leader, let's take half a day off, please approve it." "Hey, don't use my appearance to give the bureau chief a flirtatious look." Fang Xiaoqing on the side protested. "Speaking of which, Justice, there is one more thing I need to inform you." Su Feng's expression suddenly became serious again. This made Xiao Zhengyi, who had relaxed a little, nervous again. Could it be that something unexpected had happened? This is a sad fact. Su Feng stared at Xiao Zhengyi's chest. Because of the attack of the bookcase, her t-shirt was torn at the chest, and the flesh-colored bra inside could be vaguely seen. Then, he pretended to be sad and said, "Your salary, 1 year, is gone." Speaking of which, Su Feng did say that if Fang Xiaoqing found out that there was a supernatural existence in the world during the mission, then his salary would be deducted. She, covered his head, squatted on the ground, and cried out, "Oh no! I forgot. Cover your chest, idiot." Fang Xiaoqing, who was wearing his appearance, was still adding to the chaos. Chapter 59. By the time Xiao Zhengyi and the others arrived at Sakura apartment, the sky had already darkened. The main reason was that Sakura apartment was located in the suburbs and was far from the city's police station. It was also because Fang Xiaoqing dragged Xiao Zhengyi to buy a new set of clothes to change out of her revealing t-shirt. Because Fang Xiaoqing explicitly forbade Xiao Zhengyi from looking at her naked body, he followed her in when she changed her clothes, causing the surrounding men with girlfriends to reveal subtle expressions of F***ck, this is not a UOB. Are you really sure that the people living here have a way to solve our problem? Looking at the dilapidated appearance of Sakura apartment, Fang Xiaoqing naturally asked this question. Or rather, if even he can't do anything, then I'm afraid no one in the entire Jiangjin city can. Xiao Zhengyi was full of confidence in Su Shenxing. As she spoke, she went up and knocked on the door. "Who is it?" A girl's voice that he had never heard before came from inside. Then the rusty security door was opened, revealing the true face of the girl inside. It was a girl about the same age as Su Shenxing. Her hair was dyed chestnut and slightly curled. Her clothes were extremely fashionable, and they complemented her temperament. Her whole person was bright and beautiful, creating a great contrast with the dilapidated appearance of Sakura apartment. It further set off the girl's natural beauty. Xiao Zhengyi's eyes suddenly lit up. "Ah, aren't you Song Yu who often appeared on TV?" Fang Xiaoqing, who was behind him, recognized the other person and exclaimed. Sure enough, girls were more interested in chasing stars and the like. It was just that Fang Xiaoqing's voice was exactly the same as his original voice, which made Xiao Zhengyi feel complicated. He sounded like an idol otaku. "Sorry, you are?" Song Yu had never seen Xiao Zhengyi before, not to mention that Xiao Zhengyi's appearance was Fang Xiaoqing's. "That, is Su Shenxing at home?" Xiao Zhengyi tidied up his mood and asked. He guessed that the original big star in front of him should be the new tenant of Sakura apartment. In order to avoid the media and so on, she lived here in seclusion. Although it felt like a novel, it was not impossible. In that case, there was no need to get involved with the other party. It was better to simply let Su Shenxing come out to pick him up. She didn't expect that as soon as she spoke, the other party's eyes had a wonderful change. It felt like she was looking at a rival. "There's already one more opponent, why are you looking for Su Shenxing?" Song Yu's voice first, she whispered, then she put on a businesslike smile and asked, "Why are you looking for Su Shenxing?" She was obviously smiling, but why was in her words as a Zhengyi's words? So, he, she's, he's, he, of her, he, said, he so, Song Yu was so scared that she suddenly retreated more than a meter and almost tripped over the entrance. At this time, Fang Xiaoqing, who was already a little impatient, walked over from behind and pushed away the injured Xiao Zhengyi. "In short, can you hurry up and let the main character come out?" Without waiting for Song Yu to answer, Su Shenxing's voice came from the house. "Song Yu, why did it take so long to open the door? If it goes on like this, the steamed goose heart will be burned." He yawned and scratched his chest as he walked out. It was obvious that he had just woken up not long ago. Halfway through, he saw Xiao Zhengyi and Fang Xiaoqing at the door. Su Shenxing's eyes moved back and forth between the two of them a few times, then, pfft. What happened to you guys? He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Can you see it? Although he was unhappy to be laughed at, Su Shenxing could see his current situation at a glance, which gave Xiao Zhengyi a lot of confidence. More or less. Su Shenxing tried hard to hold back his laughter and said to Song Yu, you go back to the kitchen first, they're my friends from the police station. Song Yu looked at Xiao Zhengyi suspiciously. She felt that such an open declaration that she was a lesbian didn't seem to be a threat, so she obediently returned to the house. As for you guys, you guys come in and sit, but you can only drink plain water. Xiao Zhengyi was sure of one thing: Su Shenxing, who was holding back his laughter, gave people a feeling of wanting to beat him up. Of course, he couldn't beat him. Is Mo Li not at home? After entering the entrance, Xiao Zhengyi asked while taking off his shoes. He and my friend went to the landlord's house, ? Xiao Zhengyi showed a puzzled expression. Fang Xiaoqing, on the other hand, looked a little reserved, but it was quite awkward for a grown man to be so timid. Following Su Shenxing to the living room, Xiao Zhengyi thought he saw a black-haired loli wearing a black Gothic-style uniform and a cap on the sofa, but after rubbing his eyes, the loli disappeared. Could it be that he was too tired recently and was hallucinating? Then, tell me what happened. Su Shenxing casually picked a place to sit down and looked at the two people sitting side by side on the sofa. Xiao Zhengyi and Fang Xiaoqing looked at each other, and in the end, Xiao Zhengyi came forward and told the story, while Fang Xiaoqing added from time to time. Because the story wasn't complicated, it was quickly finished. So that's how it is. Su Shenxing crossed his arms and nodded thoughtfully. Have you thought of anything? Xiao Zhengyi asked expectantly. Su Shenxing wasn't good at magic, but because of a lot of tutoring at the Bailu temple recently, although he still couldn't cast magic, he had his own opinion on this matter. Recently, there have been some problems in Jiangjin, and that's why there's been an increase in abnormal events. The spirit you encountered should be a manifestation of this. A normal spirit can't swap the souls of two people. After thinking for a moment, Su Shenxing supported his chin with both hands and said in a deep voice, as for what you are most concerned about, is there a way to solve the current situation? I can tell you clearly that there is. Really? Xiao Zhengyi and Fang Xiaoqing were both overjoyed. In theory, as long as I use my skills, soul out, physical, and soul return, physical, it can be done. The word physical in your two brackets makes me very uneasy. That's right, the difficulty is that different people's souls and bodies have different adhesion. If you don't grasp it well, maybe by hitting the back of the head, your soul will be slapped out. Soul out, physical, will smash your head. But don't worry, even if that really happens, it will only hurt a little. Please give us other solutions. Xiao Zhengyi interrupted Su Shenxing's promotion and said firmly, it's best if it doesn't cause harm to the body. Well, it's not that there isn't one. Really? But it may cause harm to the soul? P.S. Speaking of which, I wanted to look for a normal shipgirl novel in Shuk before, but I couldn't find one. Almost all of them have the main character turning into a shipgirl. I just want to see the admiral flirt with the girls, not see myself turning into a girl. After complaining to my ciscon friend, he decided to fulfill my wish and write a normal shipgirl novel, 70% daily life and 30% combat. To be honest, I'm super uneasy. Because that guy is a combat controller, he can write 5 or 6 chapters of a battle, and what he's best at is super expansion, so if you are interested, help me monitor that guy. If you see him super expansion, just cut him and let him right back to normal, just say that he's under my protection. The title of the book is, The World's First Admiral Arrives. Chapter 60. In fact, as I said just now, ordinary ghosts generally can't do this kind of thing. We can basically confirm that he is able to achieve this kind of mischievous effect because of the help of external forces. Su Shenxing took out a triangular prism cup and poured himself a glass of water and slowly explained. By the way, this cup was bought based on Mo Li's interest, but that girl has never used it once. Mischievous? Xiao Zhengyi and Fang Xiaoqing looked at each other. Yes, because the bracelet I gave you can nullify most malicious spells, but it is ineffective against spells with mischievous emotions, because the spellcaster has no intention of harming the victim. Su Shenxing nodded. In this case, the solution is actually very simple. Just make the ghost disappear. He put the cup in his hand on the windowsill behind him, and suddenly a 7-colored light appeared in the cup. For example, if a beam of sunlight shines on a triangular prism, we can see that the sunlight is scattered into a 7-colored spectrum. The sunlight can be regarded as an external force, the triangular prism is the ghost, and your current situation is the scattered spectrum. Although there is no way to destroy the sun, as long as the triangular prism is taken away, he said as he took away his cup, the sunlight can naturally be restored to its original state. In fact, the so-called external force was the spiritual energy recently leaked from Jiangjin, but it was too troublesome to explain, so Su Shenxing simply vaguely explained it in the explanation. I understand. Xiao Zhengyi suddenly realized, that is to say, as long as the ghost is released, it will be fine, right? More or less. Su Shenxing reached out to Fang Xiaoqing. Give me your bracelet, I will help you strengthen it. Oh. Unable to keep up with the conversation between the two, Fang Xiaoqing, who was still in a state of confusion, quickly took off the 5-cent bracelet on her hand and handed it to Su Shenxing. Su Shenxing, equipment strengthening begins. 1, 2, Xiao Zhengyi, so they're actually using their mouths to dub. Su Shenxing, Duang, the equipment upgrade is complete. Here, 5 cents bracelet plus 2. Xiao Zhengyi was speechless as he took the bracelet that looked almost the same. By the way, other than the bracelet, can other accessories be enhanced? Sure. Su Shenxing was quite generous today. Take it as a thank you for the special discounts you gave me in the past. Today, I'll give you another enchantment. Thus, Xiao Zhengyi took off the golden necklace around his fair neck. Fang Xiaoqing, is this okay for protection? The latter hurriedly nodded her head. It seemed that the experience of running into a ghost had scared this fearless woman out of her wits. Su Shenxing took the gold necklace, stared at it for a moment, and then asked, is this pure gold? Fang Xiaoqing's head was full of question marks. Yeah, it cost a few thousand when I bought it. Su Shenxing, equipment strengthening begins. 1, 2, Xiao Zhengyi, it's actually starting from here. Su Shenxing, Duang, the equipment upgrade failed. The thousands of dollars gold necklace disappeared. Xiao Zhengyi, don't secretly hide the gold necklace in front of us. In short, as a poor man, Su Shenxing tearfully enhanced the gold necklace before he continued to tell Xiao Zhengyi and the others how to deal with the ghost. There are a total of 2 ways. The first is simpler and more direct. Xiao Zhengyi, you can wrap the bracelet around the handle of your pistol. This way, your gun will be temporarily enhanced, and the bullets you shoot can also cause fatal damage to ordinary spiritual beings. Oh, it sounds simple. Xiao Zhengyi couldn't help but smile. Don't look at me like this. There aren't many people who can beat me in shooting and rope. Are you Big Xiong? Su Shenxing subconsciously ridiculed, then continued, but spiritual beings are different from humans. They don't have vital points, so after you hit them, the protection effect attached to the bullet will gradually take effect. At first, it will bring the ghost pain as if his soul is being burned by fire. He will scream and apologize to you, begging for your forgiveness, but because this process is irreversible, you can only watch his body be dispelled by the power of the protection. After that, he will feel despair and begin to curse you and the world. If he is an evil spirit, the curse will take effect to a certain extent. But don't worry, the otakus at home are basically not bad people. Other than licking the screen and occasionally being a keyboard warrior, they probably won't do anything evil, so there is no possibility of him becoming an evil spirit. Of course, it's also possible to understand it as an otaku who can't even become an evil spirit. Someone in front of the screen vomited blood. In short, his curse should be ineffective. It's just a subconscious action due to the pain of his soul being torn apart alive. In the end, he will become extremely weak, and the pain will cause his mind to become blurry. He will cry bitterly and constantly call for his loved ones in life, usually his mother, while apologizing for all the things he regretted in life. Finally, he will sob like a child and gradually turn into ashes and disappear from this world. His soul will be completely destroyed. Happy ending. How is this a happy ending? Yu Yun is too unpleasant, hey. This will leave a shadow in my heart for the rest of my life. Xiao Zhengyi knelt on the ground, his whole body gray and white as if he had lost control of his body. Fang Xiaoqing also had an expression of disbelief. Speaking of which, was this what it meant to have one's heart hurt? It would indeed cause a psychological trauma that would be difficult to recover from for the rest of one's life. Then there's only one other way. Su Shenxing seemed to have expected Xiao Zhengyi to say this. He shrugged, drank a mouthful of water, and continued, "Do you know that there's a saying in Japan called becoming a Buddha?" "You mean?" Xiao Zhengyi raised his head and frowned with some uncertainty. "Satisfy that damn otaku's last wish and let him become a Buddha. In our words, it's reincarnation. That way, you can also achieve your own goals." Su Shenxing made a gesture of affirmation. "Although it's a little troublesome, it's still acceptable." Xiao Zhengyi glanced at Fang Xiaoqing, who nodded at him. "Oh, there's one more thing." Su Shenxing knocked on his head. "Because that guy should be just an ordinary ghost, after transferring your souls, he'll probably drift for a while because of insufficient spiritual power. At least, you won't be able to see him again today. In other words..." Fang Xiaoqing's face turned pale. "You too, it's better to think about what to do tonight." Dividing line, after sending away the two who were in a daze, Su Shenxing couldn't help but laugh. "You really can't help them?" Song Yu also walked out of the kitchen at this time. It seemed that she had eavesdropped a lot in the kitchen, although Su Shenxing didn't intend to hide it from her. "Of course I can't help them, but Mo Li can do it." "Hey, then why didn't you tell them?" "Of course it's because it's very interesting." Song Yu suddenly realized that Su Shenxing also had a rather bad side. However, she felt that she didn't hate this side of Su Shenxing. "Dinner is ready." "Well, what are you looking at?" Song Yu was planning to try a candlelight dinner with Su Shenxing before Mo Li and the others came back, but found that Su Shenxing was staring blankly at a corner of the sofa. Just now, both Xiao Zhengyi and Fang Xiaoqing subconsciously avoided that corner. "Just now, was someone sitting there?" Su Shenxing said with some uncertainty. "Illusion? Well, it should be an illusion." Chapter 61. So what should we do now? Go back home and find our own mothers? Xiao Zhengyi sat weakly in the police car and asked Fang Xiaoqing, who was not much better than him. "The problem is, are you going to find your mother or my mother?" Fang Xiaoqing sighed. "I always feel that if you go to my house now, you'll definitely be exposed." "Then what should we do?" "Go to my house?" Xiao Zhengyi frowned. "But I'm afraid I'm not much better than you." "No, it should be said that my side is more troublesome." If Fang Xiaoqing's parents were the only ones who were more difficult to deal with, Xiao Zhengyi had a nest of demons. It seems that it's not easy for you." Fang Xiaoqing didn't know where the misunderstanding went, but she showed a look of pity and patted Xiao Zhengyi's shoulder. "Why don't we go to the hotel and get a room?" Then Xiao Zhengyi's face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Why are you shy?" Fang Xiaoqing suddenly realized that her words were a bit ambiguous and couldn't help but stutter. She desperately explained, I mean, we just want to get a room for one night, don't get the wrong idea. No, in terms of appearance, I'm at a disadvantage now. Xiao Jingyi, female sign, coughed dryly and explained his somewhat dirty thoughts just now. Humph, who knows what you're thinking? I just realized that my face making such a proud expression is not cute at all. A man's pride is not cute, right? It's better to say that you only noticed this now. How narcissistic are you? The quarreling two people finally went to the hotel. By the way, Xiao Jingyi couldn't help but want to find the hotel receptionist who had an expression of, sure enough, good cabbages have been eaten by pigs. It took a lot of effort to drag Xiao Jingyi into the room. Only then did Fang Xiaoqing begin to look around the hotel room curiously. This room is unexpectedly clean, and there are no strange stains on the bed. In a sense, she finally felt a little relieved. Then, she curiously looked at Xiao Jingyi, who had been silent since he entered the room. She looked like a young man on the outside but was actually a young girl on the inside. What's wrong? Why are you suddenly so quiet? Ah, could it be that you're nervous because you're alone with me in a room? She tried to crack a joke to lighten the atmosphere. Fang Xiaoqing, what? Why are you suddenly speaking in such a serious tone? Have you ever heard of people have 3 urgent needs? Xiao Jingyi's slender legs were tightly clamped together, rubbing against each other from time to time. His face was deathly pale, as if he was enduring great pain. Could it be, I think I drank too much water at Sakura Apartments. Can I go to the toilet? No, no way. Fang Xiaoqing wailed and fell into chaos. You can't use my body to do that kind of thing. But, it feels like it's about to leak out, don't say it one by one. Fang Xiaoqing looked like she was about to cry. How about this, you cover my eyes with a towel and take me to the toilet to take off my pants, that's the only way. Fang Xiaoqing gritted her teeth and agreed to Xiao Jingyi's proposal. About 5 minutes later, Fang Xiaoqing collapsed on the bed in a trance as if she had lost all her strength. Her face was full of despair. I actually used a man's hand to touch me there. I can't. Mom, your daughter has been defiled. Even Xiao Jingyi, who was originally a little careless, was embarrassed. I say, let's talk about something else. Let's forget this kind of memory that isn't so good for you and me. So he decided to change the topic. Your family shouldn't be an ordinary family, right? Why did you think of becoming a criminal police officer? Although Fang Xiaoqing didn't mention her family's situation from beginning to end, she was able to join the criminal police brigade after the police station ended the recruitment period, and was even able to be personally received by Su Feng on the first day of the special case investigation team. Her family was definitely not simple. Of course, it doesn't matter if you don't want to say it. Considering that the other party might have a special situation, Xiao Jingyi added another sentence. Actually, it's not a big secret. There's nothing that can't be said to others. Fang Xiaoqing was silent for a moment, then said, just like you said, I was born in a very good family. Because of some reasons, I won't say more about the specific family situation. Sorry. Xiao Jingyi nodded to show that he understood and made a continue gesture. When I was a child, I always thought that I was a very special person. Well, if I look at it from my current perspective, I was very narcissistic and self-centered. At that time, I was studying in an aristocratic school. The parents of the classmates around me wanted to curry favor with my parents. Under their influence, my classmates almost all tried to curry favor with me. This further gave me the illusion that I was special. Until junior high school, I didn't enter an aristocratic school because of some reasons. Instead, I went to an ordinary junior high school. No one knew who my parents were there, and the number of students there was much more than the aristocratic school. Their backgrounds were also different, but there was no discrimination at all. The children of the rich and the children of the farmers could play together. There, for the first time, I realized that I wasn't special. I was just a member of the ordinary people. Just like that, from high school to university, I met too many people. I originally thought that my life experience was rich and colorful, but when placed in such a large base, it was still ordinary. So, whether you call it willful or stubborn, I wanted to have a different life. I wanted to have a different experience. I wanted my life to be different from others, to be more colorful. So, I rejected my parents' arrangement and ran to Jiangjin's criminal police brigade to become a small police officer. Speaking of which, I also wanted to be a star before, but at that time, the vocal music teacher that my family spent a lot of money to hire heard my song and ran away in tears. Perhaps it was because Fang Xiaoqing's itch was poked. The girl talked endlessly. Sorry to interrupt. Do you know a guy called Haruai Suzumiya? Xiao Xingyi's expression became more and more strange as he listened, and finally, he couldn't help but ask. Who? From the sound of his name, he seems to be from Japan. No, it's nothing, please continue, although this time I encountered such a shameful incident that made me want to die, to be honest. Fang Xiaoqing smiled a little. In fact, I don't regret joining the special case investigation team at all. I didn't expect that there would be such a thing in this world. Ghosts really exist, and they can even exchange souls, a situation that only appears in movies. Just this alone makes my heart beat wildly, as if it's going to explode. Take it easy, you're using my body now. What kind of situation will we encounter in the future? Just the thought of it makes me restless. Really, is there a need to be so happy about something like this? Xiao Xingyi sighed. However, he also imagined a little. If he hadn't been accidentally saved by Su Shenxing, and if he hadn't been involved in the supernatural vortex, what would his life be like now? He would probably be like an ordinary police officer, living an ordinary life, and his most glorious achievement would probably be catching criminals and being rewarded by his superiors. That was pretty much it. Xiao Xingyi felt that he couldn't go back to that boring life now. Indeed, this kind of exciting life is somewhat addictive. Right, the two looked at each other and smiled, then continued to chat. The next day, the two idiots who didn't sleep the whole night chatted. They could only force themselves to be alert, and with dark circles under their eyes, they went to the haunted apartment again. Chapter 62. Is anyone there? Xiao Xingyi raised his right palm to his mouth and shouted into the hallway. It should be, is there a ghost? Fang Xiaoqing suggested uncertainly. I think you've got the focus wrong. Because there was no response from the house, the two had to return to the room full of house items like yesterday. Sure enough, the moment they stepped into the room, a bone-chilling feeling emerged in their hearts. The feeling of being spied on was very clear, making their scalps tingle. Get out. Recharge. Get out, then the gloomy voice gradually sounded. Xiao Xingyi desperately suppressed the fear in his heart. Looking at the pearl-colored figure slowly floating out from the LCD TV screen in front of him, he suddenly gritted his teeth, picked up the rolled-up poster. On the poster was a witch with red and white underarms. From his feet, wrapped his 50-cent bracelet +2 around the poster, and then fiercely punched the figure. Ouch! The other party let out a strange scream, clutching his head and falling to the ground. At the same time, the bone-chilling coldness that had filled the room just now disappeared. You can actually touch me. The homebody ghost looked at Xiao Xingyi in shock. Xiao Xingyi sighed in his heart. As expected, Su Shenxing's products were simple and easy to use. He looked at the ghost with a fake smile and said, "Can we talk now?" "Humph, just because you can touch me, you think you're sure to win." "Naive, I'm an expert proficient in Bajiquan, Taiji, military boxing, and the 8th set of radio gymnastics, the vitality of youth. I'll let you see the horror of joint skills." "Humph." The ghost sneered and once again pounced on Xiao Xingyi. Then the latter hit him like a baseball player and sent him flying. Oh, I forgot that ghosts can't touch humans. I miscalculated. The homebody ghost knelt on the ceiling and made an OTZ. Are we so miserable because of this clown? Fang Xiaoqing, who was behind Xiao Zhengyi, helplessly covered her forehead. She couldn't help but feel that she had been so miserable because of her relationship with this guy. It was the greatest shame of her life. Xiao Zhengyi shrugged, then waved the poster in his hand and tried to communicate with the other party. Let's make a deal, brother. Can you turn us back? No. Then let's become Buddha, physics. Xiao Zhengyi, who was deeply influenced by Su Shenxing, once again struck a batter's pose. Humans are so scary. The otaku ghost hid behind the chandelier. You were a human before you died. Xiao Zhengyi mocked. Fang Xiaoqing stopped the somewhat anxious Xiao Zhengyi, and then said pleasantly, "Don't be afraid, we are actually here to fulfill your wish." Sissy is so scary. Whose fault do you think this is? The young girl wearing the skin of a young man broke down. I'm going to kill you. Fang Xiaoqing took out her gun and began to wrap her golden necklace around the gun. Xiao Zhengyi hurriedly stopped Fang Xiaoqing, who had somewhat lost her mind. In short, if you have any unfulfilled wishes, quickly tell us. We will help you fulfill them. After finally stopping Fang Xiaoqing, Xiao Zhengyi breathed a sigh of relief. Anyway, as an otaku, your wish is like that, right? Having a girlfriend or something like that. After finishing, the two of them had already discussed. As long as it didn't exceed the girl's bottom line, this kind of wish would be solved by Xiao Zhengyi, who was currently wearing Fang Xiaoqing's appearance. Let the capital spit out the 4th season of Quanjin Berserk. I can't do it. If possible, I want to watch it too. Let Ren Tang turn the Pokemon Special Series into an animation. F***CK, my life's dream. Let G Fatty count to 3. Give up. Give up, it's hopeless. This way, you can also understand how powerless you are when you can't do anything. Damn it, I can't refute it. Xiao Zhengyi knelt on the ground and groaned regretfully. Well, although I don't know who G Fatty is, if it's just the first two, maybe I can help. Fang Xiaoqing suddenly said, my father's company also cooperates with some animation companies in Fusang. If the production funds are within 10 million, I can make the decision myself. Hey. Xiao Zhengyi and the otaku ghost exclaimed together. Then the otaku ghost gave Xiao Zhengyi a slap. You guys are in cahoots, why are you so surprised? Of course, because the ghost couldn't touch the real thing, it only felt a breeze on its face. Yen? Xiao Zhengyi swallowed his saliva. US dollars. Fang Xiaoqing replied indifferently. Although he had already vaguely felt that Fang Xiaoqing's family wasn't simple, he didn't expect her to be a rich young lady. 10 million to buy a wish of yours. This way, you can also feel our sincerity, right? Fang Xiaoqing continued to say to the otaku ghost. However, the latter shook his head. I'm joking. Although I really want to see it, if it can really make my wish come true, I have more important things to ask you to do. The otaku ghost floated to a corner of the room and began to tell his story. He was born into a scholarly family. His father was a university professor, and his mother was a hospital director. Since he was a child, he was strictly educated by his parents. He was locked at home every day to study. His goal was naturally schools like Tsinghua University or Peking University. He was very sensible. He didn't make a fuss and quietly studied hard according to his parents' expectations. But perhaps because his talent was limited, although his grades could be regarded as a top student, there was still a considerable distance between him and his parents' expectations. After failing the college entrance examination twice, he still couldn't enter the best university that all the students envied. His parents' disappointed expressions made his heart feel like it was being pressed down by a heavy object, accumulating considerable pressure. A few years ago, on his mother's birthday, he carefully selected an exquisite gift for his mother, but when he sent it out, his mother didn't accept it. Instead, she said to him, "Compared to these, being able to get into Tsinghua University or Peking University is a better birthday gift than anything else." His heart was trampled, his efforts were ignored, and his hope was completely shattered with the third failure. So he fell out with his parents and ran out alone. He rented a house outside and then became addicted to anime and games. He went from a top student to an otaku in everyone's mouth. After my sudden death, my father came to see me. He said that my mother had become a little sluggish because of the blow. She even had autistic tendencies. Even her work was affected, so she could only resign and stay at home. The otaku ghost curled up into a ball with a painful expression. To be honest, I regret it. Of course, I don't regret entering the otaku house. It's just that although their high expectations for me made me a little breathless, the way I resisted was wrong. If I could have had a good talk with them back then, maybe none of this would have happened. So, your wish, I hope you can enlighten my mother and let her understand that even if I'm dead, people have to look forward. She and my father are still young. If it's possible, it's okay to forget me. It's okay to give me a younger brother or sister. His nasal voice became more pronounced. Well, if I'm still alive, I'll definitely become a qualified younger brother or sister complex. Xiao Zhengyi suddenly felt that the atmosphere was a little heavy. So, he decided to change the topic to dilute the heavy atmosphere. Speaking of which, where did you get the money to live here and buy the surrounding area? Are you living off your parents? Damn you, I'm a streamer. I've also written articles for anime and manga magazines, and I've also sent strategies to game magazines. I can earn about this amount every month. As he spoke, the ghost wiped his face carelessly and then gestured a number. Wow, doesn't that mean you earn more than me? Xiao Zhengyi couldn't help but exclaim. This kind of thing can make so much money. Is this a lot? Fang Xiaoqing tilted her head in confusion. However, Xiao Zhengyi and the otaku ghost tacitly ignored her. Well, because of the otaku interest, I accidentally spent money. Speaking of which, the ghost looked around the room. Speaking of which, my apartment's lease is about to expire. After my mother's matter is settled, can you help me donate comics and the like to the children in the mountains? Although I only use them to escape from reality, many of them can bring hope to people. Comics are things that bring smiles to people. Friendship, hard work, and victory. I think it will definitely have some beneficial effects on the children. But you have some small books here that are not suitable for children. Sell them and donate the money to Project Hope. No, you'd better burn them for me, hey, you salty ghost. Because there are a lot of hardcore things in it. For example, mutants, and so on. I think you might be treated as perverts if you sell this. What are you talking about, you ready-made pervert? That. Fang Xiaoqing asked curiously, what does Yazanjian mean? Otaku ghost and Xiao Zhengyi, that's it then. I'll protect you from the heavens. Don't disappear like a ghost only at times like this, hey. Dividing line, according to the address provided by the otaku ghost, Xiao Zhengyi and the others found his original home. The person who opened the door was a middle-aged woman with a gloomy expression. Police comrade, who are you looking for? Excuse me, are you Ms. Wang Chunhua? Xiao Zhengyi asked directly. Oh, yes. The middle-aged woman looked a little timid. Why are you looking for me? We are from the Special Case Investigation Team. Xiao Zhengyi flashed his ID. It's like this. We received a report saying that there were strange sounds coming from your son's apartment. For the sake of public safety, we went to investigate and found your son's belongings inside." "What?" The middle-aged woman opened her mouth wide and moved a few times like a fish out of water, but because she was too excited, she couldn't say anything. "First, this." Xiao Zhengyi took out a gift-wrapped box. The middle-aged woman took the box and hurriedly tore open the gift paper. Inside was a small brocade box. She froze as if she had been struck by lightning. This was the gift her son wanted to give her the day before he moved out, but she didn't accept it at that time. Then this. Fang Xiaoqing hurriedly handed another thing to the other party. It was an envelope containing a letter written by Xiao Zhengyi by the otaku ghost. "Yes, this is my son's handwriting, this is my son's handwriting." The middle-aged woman grabbed the envelope and took out the letter with trembling hands. "Although we are not in the same world and you can't see me, you can still feel everything I left behind. When I first left, although it was difficult to accept, as time passed, you will accept this fact. I also know that you will not forget me in this world, but please believe that I will always be by your side and pay attention to you. Your gains and your happiness are still my greatest comfort. Then, I want to say sorry to you. I'm sorry that I can't meet your expectations. I'm sorry that you have to take care of me. I'm sorry that I can't accompany you in front of the white-haired hospital bed. I'm sorry that I can't snuggle by your side and call you mom and dad. The happiest thing in my life is to become your son. If there is an afterlife, I hope that I can continue to be your child." "Ah, isn't that too willful? Then, if there is an afterlife, I hope that you can become my children and let me take good care of you. You are the people I love the most in this world. Thank you, my dearest mom and dad." By the time the middle-aged woman finished reading the letter, she was already sobbing. "What are you doing? Don't bully my wife." At this time, her husband, who happened to get off work, saw this scene and ran over while waving a folder. "You're running away, hey, why?" Xiao Zhengyi grabbed the hand of Fang Xiaoqing, who was still in a daze, and then ran together. Fortunately, the man did not choose to chase after them. Instead, he went to comfort his wife first. After running for a while, the two of them staggered at the same time. Then they looked at each other, their eyes full of surprise. Their bodies were changed back. This also means that Guy has become a Buddha, right? Fang Xiaoqing looked up in the direction of the apartment. Yes, but he should be satisfied. Xiao Zhengyi's face was a little sad. In a sense, that damn homebody ghost was quite suitable for him. "My hand is still holding," Fang Xiaoqing whispered. "Ah, I'm sorry." Xiao Zhengyi quickly let go of her hand. But he was surprised to find that he actually felt a sense of loss in his heart. "Hey, I suddenly understand why my parents are against me becoming a criminal police officer." Fang Xiaoqing walked in front with her hands behind her back. "If I died in the line of duty, they would definitely be so sad. So, are you going to resign?" Xiao Zhengyi asked somewhat dejectedly. "Of course not. If I resigned, I wouldn't have been able to encounter such an interesting thing today, right? And I have such an interesting companion like you. I'm liking this job more and more." Oh, that's good." Xiao Zhengyi's face was slightly red. "Police officers, please wait a moment." At this time, the middle-aged woman suddenly chased after them. "Aunt Wang, what's the matter?" Xiao Zhengyi quickly took this opportunity to adjust his mood. "I want to say thank you to you." Although her eyes were red and swollen, her expression was much more cheerful than before. "I've really troubled you." Xiao Zhengyi found that there was an exquisite necklace around her neck. Was that a gift? That guy's taste was good. After repeatedly rejecting the other party's invitation to eat at home, Xiao Zhengyi and Fang Xiaoqing returned to the police car and drove to the police station. Thinking of the ghost's parents, Xiao Zhengyi couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Shouldn't I also call home? But his father would definitely hesitate to say anything clearly, and his mother would ask him when he would bring a girlfriend home. Xiao Zhengyi secretly glanced at the girl beside him. Fang Xiaoqing rolled down the window of the police car. The whistling wind blew the girl's long hair, making it particularly beautiful. The police car drove all the way. Outside the window, the sky was just right. Chapter 63. It was about 3 days before Xiao Zhengyi's body began to emit a sour odor. The Bailu Temple's main hall was finally rebuilt. Su Shenqing sat cross-legged on the praying mat a little restlessly. Qin Xingyan sat respectfully beside him. Jasmine, on the other hand, was not used to sitting cross-legged and had already slipped off somewhere. Xingyan has already told us about the little monsters at the foot of the mountain. I would like to thank you personally. The current Abbey Dean of the Bailu Temple thanked Su Shenqing once again. Su Shenqing, who did not know what expression to use, became even more uneasy. He felt that if he were to ask these Taoists when they would pay him, he would be beaten to death by Qin Xingyan. So, he decided to use a silly smile to get away with it. I've heard from Xingyan why you're here. Faced with Su Shenqing's kind smile, the Abbey Dean felt that it was time to talk about something more practical. To be honest, we haven't done much research on spirit veins. After all, in the past, there was plenty of spirit energy. Even without spirit veins, one could still cultivate. But in this era, the spirit energy has dried up. Even if we want to study spirit veins, we don't have the means and conditions to do so. This was like a laboratory. When they had enough funds, they did not want to commercialize a certain experimental product. When they were short of funds, they remembered that they still had that product, but they had no money to commercialize it. The current cultivation world of the Chinese Empire was in a similar awkward situation. However, although ordinary cultivators do not have the ability to sense and protect spirit veins, there is another kind of existence that can instinctively sense and protect spirit veins. Oh, so that's how it is. Su Shenqing crossed his arms and nodded seriously. Seeing his expression, Qin Xingyan, who had lived in Ing apartments for a while and knew a little about Su Shenqing, immediately felt that this guy did not understand anything. He was just trying to maintain his image as an expert and was subconsciously pretending to be cool. That was indeed the case. That's right, that kind of existence is. The Abbey Dean paused for a moment, then blurted out the name together with Su Shenqing. God. A fairy, I guess. Su Shenqing and the old man looked at each other. After a long while, Su Shenqing pretended that nothing had happened and said, well, God. It's too late to change your mind now. Qin Xingyan finally couldn't help complaining with his eyes half opened. But our hero didn't care. He stroked his chin and said, but the Earth God is also a god, right? Jiang Jin clearly has a deity, so why hasn't the spirit vein improved? After all, the old Abbey Dean was old. Having experienced so many ups and downs, he was naturally more tactful. Different from the outspoken Qin Xingyan, he pretended not to notice Su Shenqing's pretentiousness and continued to explain in the slow tone of an old man, then it may be that the land is relatively weak. His power is insufficient, or his position is unstable. Oh, that guy is indeed quite weak. Su Shenqing thought back and realized that the Earth God of Jiangjin couldn't last more than 10 seconds under his hands. That should be counted in. Then, he carefully recalled that ever since he returned to Earth, it seemed that other than the old Abbey Dean in front of him who used the power of the entire White Deer Temple and the Crimson Heaven Mountain Vein to hold on for 30 seconds, nothing else could last more than 10 seconds in front of him. That's right. After all, in this era, there are not many temples of the Earth God in the heyday. It's inevitable that the strength of this kind of deity will decline. The old Abbey Dean sighed and sounded like he was lamenting about this. Su Shenqing suddenly understood. When he first met the Earth God, she did say that her temple was demolished during the period of the Four Olds and had not been rebuilt until now. In short, if we want to restore the spirit vein, I'm afraid we can only ask for help from other deities. The old Abbey Dean came to a conclusion. Let me ask you, if the spirit vein continues to leak like that, what will happen? Su Shenxing thought for a while and asked the old man, will it just be a simple increase of abnormal events and move closer to the ancient times? Of course not. If breaking the spirit vein could restore the spiritual energy to the level of the ancient times, cultivators would have done so long ago. The old man smiled bitterly and said, the amount of spiritual energy in each spirit vein is fixed. Once too much is lost, the vitality of that place will be cut off. The land will become saline alkali land where plants can't grow. The ground will sink and collapse to form sinkholes. The air will become turbid and even miasma will start to form. The water will be contaminated by filth. In short, it will become a place where humans can't live. That's really not good. Su Shenxing could not help but frown. He did not expect the consequences to be so serious. Then do you know where other deities can be invited to Jiangjin? Ah, just leave it to me. You don't have to worry about it. Actually, I don't know either. In this era, all the deities seem to have disappeared. It's already incredible that you can find a deity. You know, even in Crimson Heaven Mountain, where there is still some spiritual energy, there are no mountain deities anymore. The old man shook his head, but before Su Shenxing could show a disappointed expression, he waved his horsetail whisk and slowly said, however, if you trust this poor Taoist has a way. What is it? Su Shenxing's eyes lit up and he asked hurriedly. Since you can't find other deities, why don't you become a deity yourself, master? The old Abbey Dean smiled calmly and told Su Shenxing and Qin Xingyan his idea under the dull eyes of the old Abbey Dean. It turned out that during the anti-Japanese war, Yun Guanyu, the Abbey Dean of Bailu Temple, once saved a strange person on the battlefield. After the man recovered, he gave Yun Guanyu a deity tablet. What was unbelievable was that the tablet contained the deity position of a god of war. However, the Bailu temple was full of cultivators and did not have a deep understanding of martial arts. Occasionally, there were one or two people who were good at fighting, but they were far from being able to inherit the deity position. In fact, after a study by a group of senior officials of Bailu Temple, they found that in this era where spiritual energy was scarce, no one could cultivate to the level of inheriting the deity position through martial arts. It was not until Su Shenxing appeared out of nowhere and beat up the whole Bailu Temple for a groundless crime that the old men were surprised and doubtful at the same time. They also realized that Su Shenxing might be the only person in the world who could inherit the deity position. Later, the old Abbey Dean proposed to ask Su Shenxing to help those monsters move because he wanted to test Su Shenxing. If Su Shenxing forced those monsters to move by force, the Bailu Temple would not have taken out the deity tablet. But Su Shenxing didn't do that, although from a certain perspective, he was even more overboard. All he did was scare the other party. Moreover, he didn't care about the gains and losses, and sold the favor of all the demons to White Deer Temple. Compared with the deity tablet, which could only be seen but not taken, this favor was obviously more valuable. Therefore, after that, the senior officials of Bailu Temple unanimously decided to give the deity position to Su Shenxing. Anyway, their proud disciple Qin Xingyan lived in Su Shenxing's house. Maybe the deity position would be exported to the domestic market. Chapter 64. And then? The girl who was dragged to Sakura apartment by Mo Li was lying on the sofa in boredom and asked without interest. The deity position was judged as something harmful by the cloud scales on my body and bounced off, Su Shenxing said awkwardly. Cough cough. The earth god Loli choked on her own saliva. Ah, actually not all of it bounced off. I'll keep the deity position for now. Su Shenxing quickly tried to salvage the situation. By the way, the deity position was basically made up of divine right, divine grace, and divine punishment. If the deity position was compared to an outfit, then divine right, divine grace, and divine punishment would be like clothes, pants, and sneakers. The deity position would be like the logo on the outfit. Therefore, what Su Shenxing did was to throw all the outfits that others had brought into the trash can. Then, he took off the sign and held it in his hand. He even said cheerfully, "Those clothes are too ugly. I only want this." That was pretty much what he meant. "So it's fine if you call me martial god Su Shenxing now, it's a miracle that you didn't get beaten to death." The earth god lowly rolled her eyes. "That's because my master and uncles can't beat you," Qin Xingyan added. After all, the higher-ups of the Bailu temple who wasted a deity position for no reason wanted to die at that time, so what do you want to do with me? The earth god lowly ignored Qin Xingyan, who was Jasmine's accomplice, and dragged her over, and continued to ask. "I just want to ask, what's the situation with the spirit vein in Jiangjin now?" Since he left Jiangjin for half a month, Su Shenxing wasn't very clear about the current situation in Jiangjin. Those two fellows from Shangjing have some tricks up their sleeves. They made a tributary at the place where the spirit vein leaked out and channeled all the leaked spirit energy into a room. Then, they sealed the spirit energy inside with a barrier. "Excuse me, may I ask? Is the owner of that room Xiao Zhengyi?" Su Shenxing interrupted the girl and asked. You've already gone to take a look?" Su Shenxing was speechless. No wonder Xiao Zhengyi had found an opportunity to cry and complain to him that his house was full of monsters after his body had been swapped with a girl's. All the spiritual energy leaking out of Jiangjin's spirit vein was concentrated in one room. Being bathed in such a dense spiritual energy, it would be strange if the things in the room didn't turn into monsters. Su Shenxing, who felt that he shouldn't talk about Xiao Zhengyi's problem in detail, simply changed the topic and said, "I heard that the gods will instinctively repair damaged spirit veins. Then, are you unable to do anything about Jiangjin's spirit veins now?" The problem of Jiangjin's spirit vein can be said to have existed since ancient times, the earth god sighed. You should also know that Jiangjin is very close to the Yellow Spring. About 300 years after it became the land of Jiangjin, a hole connecting the Yellow Spring and the present world appeared in this land. If it wasn't for the young daughter of a local great clan leader in Jiangjin who used her own body as a material to reenact the process of Nuwa mending the heavens to block the hole, I'm afraid that the things in the Yellow Spring who are extremely hostile to the living would have emerged. If that really happened, it wouldn't have been easy to deal with. However, because of that, a gap appeared in Jiangjin's spirit veins. Although I tried my best to repair it, at most, I could only quietly maintain it in an undamaged state. Then, more than 100 years ago, a lunatic appeared and opened the passage to the Yellow Spring again. However, before he could do anything evil, he was sealed by the temple master of the Bailu temple at that time. With the help of his seal, the damage to the spirit veins wasn't to the extent that it couldn't be repaired. You should be clear about what happened after that. At this point, the earth lowly seemed to be a little dispirited. She leaned on the sofa's armrest with a gloomy expression. It wasn't clear if she was thinking about those unpleasant things in the past. Su Shenxing crossed his arms and pondered. Although he had just returned to Earth and didn't have much self-awareness, based on his experiences during this period of time, he was probably the strongest person on Earth and even in the solar system. However, the strongest didn't mean that he was omnipotent. For a problem like the current one, perhaps a person who was proficient in sealing techniques would be more useful than him, the savior who had punched the solar system and kicked the other world. Should he just cut off the Yellow Spring? If he was a little more serious, it wasn't impossible for him to use the Holy Sword. The problem was, who could guarantee that Jiangjin's spirit veins would be restored after the Yellow Spring was gone? Moreover, without the Yellow Spring, there might be even more serious repercussions for this world, it's a pity that Emoli isn't proficient in sealing. After pondering for a long time, he still couldn't come to a conclusion and could only sigh helplessly. As a former demon king, Emoli's magic leaned more towards combat and destruction. He also had a lot of support magic, but there were basically no sealing techniques. Olivia, the world that Su Shenxing had once saved, had a person who was proficient in sealing magic. Even the seal on Emoli's body was developed based on the technique on the Holy Sword. However, the current Su Shenxing didn't have the ability to go to that world. If he randomly split the world open, the possibility of falling into a messy different dimension was higher. Speaking of which, the country in Centaurus seemed to have some strange techniques, but he still didn't have the means to contact them. Although the Bailu temple has a sealing technique, but the cultivation requirement is quite high. Other than the previous temple master, it seems that no one has learned it. Qin Xingyan added on. Anyway, I can still hold on for a while. You guys can slowly think of a way during this time. Earth Goddess Loli seemed to have finally pulled herself together and jumped up from the sofa. I still have an event with Tanaka Fei's mother today, so I won't accompany you guys. Is it really okay? Su Shenxing looked at Earth Goddess Loli and frowned slightly. Although it didn't seem to be anything at first glance, if one looked closely, they would find that the girl's body seemed to be slightly transparent. If it's just this level, it's fine, but the consumption of divine power is a bit too much. The girl smiled slightly, showing a mature temperament that was completely different from her age. She stretched lazily. I have received the kindness of this land for thousands of years, and now it's time to return the favor. Then, her smile dimmed, and she muttered with some loneliness. No, maybe, 700 years ago, I should have taken her place and walked on this path. Emoli, who had come out of the room at some point, stood on tiptoe and patted her head. You are also a land with a story. Can I hit her? The corner of Earth Goddess Loli's mouth twitched, and the feeling of being detached from the world disappeared in an instant. She turned around and asked Su Shenxing. Please. The latter shrugged. I mean, if you can beat her. Chapter 65. Let me tell you guys, the witch outfit is definitely the cutest. That dreamy combination of red and white is similar to a kimono, giving people endless room for imagination. At the same time, the trousers and skirt are completely different from ordinary skirts. Not to mention, there are two types of specialized tops that are exposed under the armpit and sleeveless. Not only that, there are also a lot of accessories, such as coins, rice rope, and cuffs. After the summer vacation, on the second day of school at Jiangjin University, Su Shenxing was baptized by Monkey as soon as he entered the lecture hall. He carefully avoided the other party's saliva, then asked the four-eyed class leader who was also being brainwashed, "What's wrong with this guy?" "I'm not sure, I think he saw a girl wearing a witch outfit when he was setting up a stall with his dad, then he became cute," the class leader answered weakly. Looking at his haggard appearance, he must have been brainwashed in the dormitory before coming here. Normally, no one would wear a witch outfit. Is it cosplay? Su Shenxing asked curiously. It's useless even if you ask me. The class leader shrugged, I don't know much about this. Then, even Monkey, who was still talking non-stop, stopped and looked at him with Su Shenxing with an expression that said, "Why are you still pretending at this point?" Although he always pretended to be a sporty and sunny youth in front of girls, the four-eyed class leader was actually an out-and-out otaku. Of course, he wasn't an otaku. Although he would investigate whether there were comic cons nearby and actively participate, he wouldn't claim that a girl in a certain anime was his wife. Also, he was very interested in girls' breasts in real life, limit B and above. He was a person who yearned for a life of instant gratification, so he took the initiative to organize social events. Because of this, he always pretended that he wasn't an otaku at school. But don't even mention the people in his dorm. Even Su Shenxing knew what kind of person this guy was. Ahem, well, at least for my information, there aren't any comic cons near Jiangjin recently. The class leader pushed up the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said awkwardly. That's strange, no one would wear that kind of thing in their daily life, right? Su Shenxing said in disbelief. Even if it was the earth goddess Loli, she would still wear clothes that normal people would recognize when she was walking around the human world. Most of the time, she would buy new games, although it was still debatable whether or not the white shirt with the words "work is lost" written on it could be considered normal clothing. So, no matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem right for her to wear a witch costume, right? What's the meaning of that kind of thing? Are you looking down on witch outfits? Monkey immediately stomped his feet. Sorry, I'm a cute loli. Su Shenxing put his textbook on the table. He sat, and answered without hesitation, clothes, to me, anything. What? I didn't expect Su Shenxing to say something like that. Apologize to me. Apologize to witch outfits, nurse outfits, maid outfits, idol outfits, pony dolls, bubble skirts, office lady outfits, goth loli outfits, bikinis, little devil leather outfits, sailor outfits, bunny girl outfits, cat ears, glasses, Zune hat, mouthball, dance stick. And so on. Wait a minute, did you mix in some weird things at the end? That's because you don't love enough. Monkey clenched his fist and pointed at Su Shenxing, who was sitting upright and still. He put on a "there's only one reason you're defeated, and that's because you pissed me off" pose. This student, class has already started. Please take your love and stand at the door as punishment. The teacher, who was standing behind Monkey, said with a face of rotten wood. Su Shenxing, you schemed against me. Dividing line, because school had just started, the classes weren't heavy, and there weren't many classes in the afternoon. The four-eyed class monitor and Monkey planned to observe the freshmen's military training and see if there were any goddesses like last year's Chang Shaoxian. Although they also invited Su Shenxing still had a job, so he declined. The summer heat in Jiangjin hadn't dissipated yet in September. The owner of Shaoxian's snack shop sympathized with Su Shenxing and let him get off work early and go home. Thus, Su Shenxing carried a lunchbox of braised meat back to Ying's apartment. But when he opened the door, he found Su Feng sitting inside drinking tea. He decided to pretend that he didn't see anything, closed the door, and left. After the Bailu Temple incident, this guy had looked for Su Shenxing several times. Every time, it was to deal with problems related to the mutation caused by the spirit vein in Jiangjin. In short, he pushed all the troublesome and thorny work to Su Shenxing, and the reason he used was quite righteous. If it wasn't for love and peace, then it was for justice. What's more, this guy didn't even pay them for their hard work. Every time after the problem was solved, at most, he would invite them out for a meal. By the time school started yesterday in Jiangjin, 3 of the city's buffet restaurants had already been eaten. Unfortunately, his escape plan was thwarted. The one who blocked the door was the lowly named Antares. She was wearing a gorgeous white princess dress today. The layers of lotus leaves and translucent tassels matched perfectly. The pure white headwear with some silver ornaments matched her silver hair very well. Su Shenxing couldn't help but want to take a few more glances at her. Then, Su Feng, who was waiting for him, caught him. When he returned to the living room, Su Shenxing found that not only were the members of the Special Case Investigation team all present, but there was also a new face. It was a girl with long straight black hair wearing a witch costume. She exuded a demure aura. Could it be that the person the monkey saw was her? Su Shenxing vaguely felt so in his heart. At this time, she was looking at Su Shenxing, whose neck was held by Su Feng, and then inexplicably showed a bright smile. For some reason, Su Shenxing seemed to smell a fermenting stench. By the way, Mo Li, who had left early and returned home, expressionlessly kicked Su Shenxing's shin with the tip of his small leather shoes. Obviously, he was throwing a tantrum. "Well, no matter who you are, can you please explain the current situation?" Su Shenxing pulled Su Feng's hand away, took the still throwing a tantrum Mo Li into his arms, and sat down on the squeaky cheap sofa. Then, he asked as if he had given up. At the same time, he also noticed that the girl in the witch costume showed a somewhat disappointed expression. "It started half a month ago." Su Feng sat on the other side of the sofa with satisfaction, and then began to explain, "I remember that you got a god's name from the Bailu temple, right?" Chapter 66. A god's name was the name of a god. It was the most important thing to distinguish whether a creature was a god or not. For example, Su Shenxing's current god's name was Green Spirit Ninchi Demon Rinsing Lord. In the myths, it was an incarnation of the 5 elders of the 5 directions. It was also said that it was a clone of the Demon Rinsing Lord of the Big Dipper Purple Star. However, because the divine right that recorded the core information of the god's position was bounced off by Yunlin, Su Shenxing did not know which ancient god this thing came from. In addition, although a god's name sounded very high and mighty, in fact, it was just a useless part of the god's position. It was like an ancient general. No matter how long the title was, the one who held the military power in his hand was the boss. Otherwise, it was just a vase for show. And the divine right, divine grace, and divine punishment in the god's position were discarded by Yunlin like worn-out shoes. So now, this god's name was just for show to Su Shenxing. What's wrong? Is there something wrong with this god's name? After coming back to his senses, Su Shenxing asked in confusion. Su Feng spread his hands and then made a "please" gesture to the witch. The latter stood up, bowed to Su Shenxing, and said in Japanese, "Excuse me." Then, she took out a yellow, bronze mirror from her trousers. The bronze mirror was decorated with an ancient red ribbon and a jade handle. The girl held the handle and carefully put the bronze mirror close to Su Shenxing. The bronze mirror glowed brightly. So, the witch nodded to Su Feng with a look of surprise. After receiving the signal, Su Feng continued to explain, "In fact, this is what happened." With his tireless explanation, Su Shenxing quickly understood the whole story. First of all, the witch's name was Asahi Sakura Kanji. She was the current witch of a shrine called the White Bell Shrine in Japan. Then, there was a dry well in the shrine, and it was said that a legendary monster was sealed in it. In order to prevent the world from being destroyed, in order to protect the peace of the world, the White Bell Shrine would usually have a god stationed to guard the well. However, the previous god had left the shrine early for some reason, and the next god to take over the shrine had not been born yet. What was worse was that the dry well had started to change strangely recently. There was the sound of water, but there was no trace of well water. Judging that this might be the sign of a big monster breaking free from the seal, the former Miko had no choice but to ask for help from the Yinyang Liao of Fusang. On the other hand, Yinyang Liao had learned that a new god had been born in the Celestial Empire. It was none other than Su Shenxing, who was sitting on the sofa with a confused look on his face. Therefore, Yinyang Liao simply asked the current Miko of the White Bell Shrine to invite this god to temporarily oversee the White Bell Shrine and prevent the big monster from escaping. Let me ask, how big is a great demon? After listening to the story, Su Shenxing rubbed his chin and asked curiously. You should know about the 3 big monsters of Fusang, Su Feng said in a deep voice, holding his chin with both hands, looking at Su Shenxing like a commander. Yes, I know, Su Shenxing replied proudly. Mothra, Gamera, and Godzilla. It's Shutendaji, Tamamo no Mei, and Yamata no Orochi. Su Feng ignored Su Shenxing's cutesy act and said, the real identity of the big monster sealed by the White Bell Shrine is unknown, but considering that it might have something to do with the legendary Daitengu, and that Daitengu usually obeys the orders of the demons. It might be Shutendaji. If he jumps out, can I beat him up? Don't give me face. Su Feng gave Su Shenxing a thumbs up. Well said, but I refuse. Su Shenxing put his chin on Mo Li's head and said weakly, I don't want to go to Fusang. Why? From your previous behavior, you don't seem like a nationalistic youth. Su Feng asked curiously. It's a great opportunity to travel on public expense. Isn't Fusang surrounded by the sea? Su Shenxing said seriously. I'm allergic to seafood. Sorry, what did you say? I think I'm hearing things. Su Feng picked his ears. The guy who could play with curses, use black magic as an electric fan, and eat the golden silkworm like fried beans was actually allergic to seafood? Anyway, other things can be discussed, but I'm not going to Fusang. Su Shenxing yawned and planned to let Mo Li chase him away. At this time, Xiao Jingyi grabbed Su Feng, who still wanted to say something. Team leader, at this time, you can't persuade him with ordinary words. But... Su Feng furrowed his brows, clearly unwilling to give up. So we have to use some other words. Xiao Jingyi coughed and said to the bored Su Shenxing, 500 a day. Su Shenxing's ears perked up, but he still tried hard to resist the temptation of money. Humph, 500 a day, food, lodging, and travel expenses are included. For the friendship between the people of the two countries, even if I can't eat seafood, I'm willing to sacrifice a little. Su Shenxing said righteously as he patted his chest. That's it. Team leader, take the contract. Xiao Jingyi looked at Su Feng. That's it? Su Feng looked at the two of them with an expression that said, F***ck akuya. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he felt that words were too weak. No matter what he said, it seemed that he couldn't save the integrity of Jiang Jin's strongest person. Speaking of which, what about my school? Su Shenxing asked casually as he took the contract. Just say that you're going to Fusang to participate in an international university exchange learning experience. The higher-ups of your school have already made a deal with us. Anyway, it will take more than a month for the next god to accept the White Bell Shrine, so just bear with it. Su Feng immediately explained, as for Japanese, we will arrange a professional Japanese teacher to give you an emergency tuition. I guarantee that you'll pass N2 in a month. There's no need for tuition. Language is not a barrier for me. As a hero, Su Shenxing had already received the blessing of all races, so as long as it was the language of intelligent creatures, he could understand it. Therefore, this guy could only fail advanced mathematics, but his English had already passed CET 8. He waved his hand and casually flipped through the contract, but didn't find anything special. Oh, this time they actually came up with something like this. It's quite formal, after all, this time it involves a foreign country, so we need to be more formal, Su Feng explained casually. Su Shenxing nodded noncommittally, and then signed his name on the contract. Very good. Su Feng put away the contract with satisfaction, folded it into a paper airplane, added a layer of magic to it, and threw it out the window. This contract would probably be sent to his higher-ups soon. Then, he smiled and took out a copy of the contract, pointed at one of the clauses, and said, Then, let's invite our god to try on women's clothing first. Huh. Chapter 67. Wait a minute, Su Shenxing rubbed his eyebrows and asked in confusion, why do I have to wear women's clothes? Isn't it written on the third page of the contract? The location of the White Bell Shrine was bought by the Daiso Consortium in Japan, and a women's college called Huanghua was built around the White Bell Mountain. Su Feng said matter-of-factly, since you want to enter the women's college, of course you have to wear women's clothes. Su Shenxing hurriedly turned the copy of the contract to the third page and found that it was full of information about the background of the White Bell Shrine, giving people the feeling of a cheap travel guide. At the bottom of this densely packed text, there was a sentence written, "Therefore, Party B, Su Shenxing, needs to wear women's clothes to enter and live there." Su Shenxing always felt that this thing was similar to what was commonly used on the internet some time ago. First, they would use the first person to tell a thrilling story with ups and downs, then at the end, they would suddenly change the topic and say, "Then the question is, which company is better at using excavators?" It's all F***king tricks. Su Shenxing thumped his chest and stamped his feet. "Then do you want to try it on now? Women's clothes?" Su Feng suggested calmly. "Bah, you dirty dogs of state power, I won't give in to you even if I die." Su Shenxing flatly refused with an indignant look on his face. "If you want me to wear that kind of thing, you should at least send a fleet of planet destroyers." "Do you have to react so violently?" Su Feng had a helpless look on his face. At this time, Emily, who was treated as a pillow by Su Shenxing, suddenly raised her head and said in an emotionless tone, "Mr. Landlord, I have a phobia about women's clothes." "Hey, Su Shenxing, did you really wear that thing before?" Xiao Zhengyi asked curiously. Even Qin Xingyan couldn't help but look over curiously when she heard this. She didn't have the indifferent temperament that cultivators should have, one that didn't care about material gains or personal sorrows. However, Su Shenxing refused to cooperate and refused to tell them what happened before. Actually, it wasn't a story that needed to be kept secret. Su Shenxing was once involved in an interstellar war in the Centaurus galaxy because of her tenant. On the eve of the war, the princess, who was once a tenant of Sakura apartment, was placed under house arrest on an administrative planet by a hostile force. Su Shenxing had originally planned to go straight in and rescue her, but at that time, the princess's housekeeper thought that doing so might hurt the princess, so he suggested that Su Shenxing sneak in dressed as a woman and secretly bring the princess out without using force as much as possible. At that time, because it was Su Shenxing's first time going to an alien planet, he felt that as an outsider, he should listen to the advice of the locals, so he really foolishly dressed as a woman and went to that administrative planet. Now that he thought about it, when the butler saw Su Shenxing in women's clothing, he looked as if he had seen a ghost. Even the lieutenants of the princess's forces subconsciously wanted to run when they saw him. He should have realized something was wrong. As a result, not long after he arrived on that planet, he was arrested by the local police and quickly thrown into prison after a trial by a super-intelligent computer that was connected to the entire galaxy. He was sentenced to a total of 10 years and 1 month in prison. By the way, he was charged with carrying a biochemical weapon of mass destruction and smuggling. The former was sentenced to 10 years, while the latter was sentenced to 1 month. Su Shenxing, who was dumbfounded in prison for a long time, finally broke through the iron wall and escaped with a look of despair in his eyes. According to the original plan, he rescued the princess by force, destroyed the basic weapons and army of the entire planet, and defeated a full interstellar fleet stationed on that administrative planet and its nearby universes, including a Titan-class Eternal battleship, 3 Fortress-class battleships, and 8 frigates of various levels, laying a solid foundation for the forces that supported the princess to win the final victory. After that, Su Shenxing had the self-awareness that he should be the most unsuitable protagonist in women's clothing, and he was resistant to women's clothing from the bottom of his heart. "Hey, I'm really curious, can you tell me a little?" Because it was rare to have a chance to tease Su Shenxing, Xiao Zhengyi did not hesitate to commit suicide. "Emily, bite him." Su Shenxing ordered Emily to attack Xiao Zhengyi. Emily showed a look of disgust. The effect was outstanding, and Xiao Zhengyi's heart was hurt. Originally, most of the gods in Fusang were not visible to ordinary people, so there was no need to worry about this. However, the higher-ups considered that you have a physical body, so they had no choice but to do this. You should bear with it for the time being. Su Feng saw Su Shenxing's dissatisfied gaze looking at him, so he did not hesitate to clear his name and threw the blame to his superior. Then I can't be a teacher? Su Shenxing asked gloomily. The teachers in Huanghua Women's Academy are all women. Su Feng continued to explain. In fact, there were originally men, but after a guy called Takizawa abducted a student, all the male teachers were fired, and the academy basically banned the recruitment of male staff. Very good, I remember you, that obscene teacher. Su Shenxing was full of resentment. Then you will still abide by it, right? I mean the contract. Su Feng continued to ask. Although he did not know the reason, from Su Feng's investigation, unless there was something difficult to solve, Su Shenxing would abide by all the rules of human society as if he had obsessive-compulsive disorder. This was also why even though he had the power to make a better life than anyone else, he still lived in the shabby Sakura apartments and worried about making a living every day. Therefore, this time, he had Su Shenxing sign the contract first before bringing up the matter of women's clothing, which had been briefly mentioned in the contract. If I violate the contract, I will be fined 1 million yuan, right? Su Shenxing flipped through the copy and threw the contract on the table. No problem, I will think of a way to get the money. Xiao Zhengyi was surprised. In his impression, Su Shenxing, who loved money as much as his life, actually took the initiative to accept the punishment this time. He would rather pay money than wear female cross-dressing. To what extent did he resist women's cross-dressing? Ah! The priestess, who had been silent all this while, suddenly raised her hand cautiously and interrupted their conversation in stiff Mandarin. My Mandarin is not very good, but the conversation just now, my request, did Kamisama reject it? That's right. Before Su Feng could speak, Su Shenxing hurriedly said. He stood up, put Emoli in his arms on the sofa, and said to the witch with long black hair, if you don't mind, stay for dinner, as an apology. Is that so? The witch looked disappointed, but soon she forced herself to be spirited. Well, can I continue to persuade Kamisama? Can you use persuasion here? Xiao Zhengyi whispered, but Su Feng bumped his arm as a warning. Do as you wish. Su Shenxing sighed and gestured to Emoli to see him off, and slowly walked into the kitchen with the braised meat. You only let the witch stay for dinner, you guy who values women more than friends. Xiao Zhengyi's voice gradually faded as he was thrown out by Emoli, and completely disappeared after the door slammed shut. Chapter 68. Son, when are you going to bring a girlfriend back so I can be at ease? Outside the Jiangjin Train Museum, Monkey's father, Wu Xingbang, was leaning against his portable wonton stall and muttering to Monkey, who was cleaning up the plastic bowls. Okay, don't worry about it. Monkey waved his hand. Wait until I graduate from university, I don't have time right now. Hey, don't pretend. Who can you fool when you've been out of your mind for the past 2 days? Tell me, which girl have you taken a fancy to? The middle-aged balding Monkey's father laughed evilly as he inquired about his son's relationship situation. No, just a passing beauty. She's as pretty as a celebrity, how could she take a fancy to your son? Monkey took out a small folding stool, pulled it open and sat on it. You're already scared before it even starts. You really don't look like my son. Back then, a lot of people chased after your mother, but didn't I succeed? Succeed? A few years ago, you've been crazily talking about some train goddess. Monkey sneered, my mother was so angry at you that she went back to her grandmother's house, but you still haven't been able to invite her home. What do you know, that's because your mother is thin-skinned. I just need to say a few gentle words and she'll be back soon. Wu Xingbang's old face reddened. He was a bit embarrassed, so he simply chased Monkey away. Go find your passing beauty, don't disturb my business. Monkey vaguely muttered, do you believe I'll tell my mother what you said? Then, he slipped away before his father flipped out. The autumn tiger's power was not small. After running for a short distance, Monkey was already sweating profusely. Girlfriend, what he couldn't forget was naturally the girl in the witch costume he saw before. However, regardless of how high the chances of them meeting again were, even if they did meet, the other party was a school beauty on the same level as Song Yu. For an ordinary person like him, being a spare tire was already the most he could do. After calling the class leader, he realized that his dorm mates were all trying to hook up with the juniors in military training and no one was paying attention to him. Although it wasn't a bad choice to hook up with someone, Monkey still decided to be merciful and go to the internet cafe to play League of Legends by himself to give his brothers a chance to develop. Otherwise, if someone as handsome as me goes, they won't have a chance. After muttering some self-comforting words, Monkey entered the city's park, intending to take a shortcut to the internet cafe that he frequented. As the autumn wind blew, countless withered leaves fell to the ground. In this yellow-green rain, the monkey once again encountered that unforgettable figure. She was still wearing the red and white witch dress. She looked up at the sky in a daze, her melancholy expression making one's heart ache. Monkey was completely stunned by this beautiful scene that resembled an oil painting. He was in a daze for a long time before he came back to his senses. He gritted his teeth and walked over. Miss, but when he opened his mouth, he realized that he didn't even know what to say at this time. However, his voice still brought Asahi Sakura Kanji back to reality. She looked at Monkey, then covered her mouth with both hands and said in surprise, "Ah, you're the kind-hearted person who gave me directions that day." When Asahi Sakura Kanji took the plane to Jiangjin, she was vexed for a long time because she didn't know where the police station was. Fortunately, she met Monkey after leaving the airport and he gave her directions. That was how she arrived at the police station safely and found Su Feng and the others. It was also because of this that Monkey had such a deep impression of her. If he had really just caught a glimpse of her on the road, how could he not forget her to this extent? You actually still remember me." Monkey was a little flattered, and a nervous smile involuntarily appeared on his face. "Sigh, it's because it's rare to see such a kind-hearted person like you." The girl smiled, then became vexed. "I don't know why, but recently, the men I meet always want to strike up a conversation with me. Of course, that's because you're too cute." Monkey thought in his heart. I think you seem to be vexed about something." He mustered up his courage and tried his best not to let her see any clues on his face. He pretended to casually ask, "Maybe I can help. After all, I've lived in Jiangjin since I was young." "Really?" the girl said in surprise. "That's great." Then, she shyly said, "Actually, I came to Jiangjin to find a guy." Monkey seemed to hear the sound of his heart breaking. "Wait, don't be anxious. Maybe they don't have a purely heterosexual relationship." He desperately comforted himself in his heart. "I've always been looking forward to going back to Japan with him." Cough, cough, Monkey tried his best to suppress the urge to vomit blood. He already couldn't lie to himself anymore. That's right, how could such a cute girl not have a boyfriend? But he rejected me and even said that he wanted to solve the problem with money. What kind of development is this? What the hell is with money? Is that guy a scumbag? Su Shenxing, who was working at Shaxian's snack shop, sneezed. "But no matter what, I want him to go back with me." Ah! What a loyal girl. He even gave up on such a good girl. That guy is indeed a scumbag. Shaxian's shop manager, "Little Su, do you have a cold? Why are you sneezing so much? So if it's possible, can you give me some advice?" Asahi finished speaking in stiff Chinese and looked at Monkey with a hopeful gaze. "Woo-woo, don't look at me with such sparkling eyes. Calm down, the beast in my body." For some reason, Monkey's brain turned into a Chinibyu mode. Actually, when it comes to love, you have to enjoy the process. Monkey tried his best to comfort her. Didn't I make it clear? The girl tilted her head in confusion. This action was surprisingly cute. That guy and I aren't lovers? Aren't you? That's right. She's from Japan and doesn't understand Chinese well. It's normal for her to have some ambiguities. Monkey's mood inexplicably lifted. I still have a chance. I can't laugh, I can't laugh, I can't laugh. Monkey tried his best to make his expression look more normal. Only then did he prepare to continue speaking. However, the girl spoke before he could. It's a relationship deeper than lovers, from the perspective of a god and a witch serving a god. A relationship deeper than lovers, their husband and wife. Monkey was completely petrified. Mr. Kind Person, what's wrong with you? Wait, Why did you suddenly shed tears of blood? Ambulance. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.